Speaker, ma'am, anyari atadza kana asinyari atadza kuwandisa kuzadzisa vanhu kwavanoita ndiro dambudziko. Nekuti panoitika tsaona iyoyo mukafunga kuti pafa vanhu 12 dzinenge mota 2 dzaita accident, dzaita tsaona. Madam Speaker, ma'am, zvarwadza nekuti kazhinji padzinoita accident panobva patoitwa national disaster. Munamato wangu, Madam Speaker, ma'am, ndiri kuti izvo mota idzi kubatsiridza kwadzinoita dambudziko retransport ngadzichitakura vanhu vakangokwana vanenge 5 kana 6. Mota hombe dzatinodhiraivha dzinenge maPrado ingawani tinotakura vanhu 9 chete, idzo dzakakura kudaro. Mapurisa zvakare anofanira kunge achikwanisa kuti amerewo mazino arume vashande zvavanofanira kushanda kuita kuti mota idzi dzitevere mutemo. Mudhorobha ndaifunga kuti dai mota idzi dzashanda sema-shuttle bus, muenzaniso kubva kushowground kutakura aburuka imomo dzichiunza mudhorobha kana kubva mudhorobha dzichiendesa kushowground. Kumarizevhawo dzoonekwa kuti idzo mota dzacho dziri kufamba dzichitakura vanhu kudai dzinokwanisa here kufamba dzakanaka zvakanaka here kuti dzione kufamba munzira imomo. Ndoda kupedzisira ndichiti mukabati yechigaro kwamuri ndiri kukumbira kuti dai Honorable Minister veTransport vauya muno muAugust House neministerial statement votiudzawo mastatistics etsaona dzaita zvimota izvi uye vanhu vakaurayiwa uye kukuwadzwa nezvimota izvi. Vatiudzezve kuti mabhindauko api oro urongwa hwevanenge vazoita kuti dambudziko iri ridzikire kana kupera. Ndatenda, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Tinotenda Honorable chikumbiro chenyu chanzwika. Mashoko achaendeswa kuna Minister vanoona nezvazvo mazvita. Point of national interest, Honorable M. Murombedzi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, ma'am, yesterday we joined the rest of the region in commemorating the June 16 anniversary of the 1976 Soweto uprising. This is not just a South African memory, but it is a shared African legacy. The image of those unarmed school children confronting armed oppression struck a chord across our continent, including here in Zimbabwe, where our own youth were rising against colonial rule. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the Soweto uprising was about education, language, and dignity. It reminds us that the youth are not just leaders of tomorrow, but they are the conscience of today. As we honor their courage, we must ask ourselves, are we truly advancing their legacy? Madam Speaker, ma'am, today some of our own universities have gone silent, not because of exams, but because lecturers are striking for salaries that reflect their professional worth. In the rural parts of our country, learners are still dropping out of school due to poverty and unpaid beam fees. Madam Speaker, ma'am, these are not just isolated administrative challenges. There are deep questions about whether we are fulfilling the promise of the independence for the young. Madam Speaker, June 16 must not just be more than a date on the calendar. It must be a mirror that reflects how we treat our learners, our teachers, and the very system meant to uplift them. Let us move beyond ceremonial remembrance and recommit to an education system that empowers, one that no longer asks our youth to march or protest for the basics, but offers them dignity by default. I so submit.
Thank you, Honorable Murombedzi. I recognize the Government Chief Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that order number 1 be to go over to number 2. Order number 6, 10, and 23 in that order have been disposed of.
Who seconds?
I second, Madam Speaker.
Notice of motion number 6, Honorable G.K. Stole.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the motion in my name.
Thank you. Who seconds?
And Madam Speaker,
Thank you. Honorable Stole.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I present the report of the Public Accounts Committee on Karoi Town Council's audited financial statements for the year ended 31 December 2020 as presented in the Auditor General's report of the year 2023. The committee resolved to inquire into the issues raised by the Auditor General on 2019 financial statements for Karoi Town Council, as reported in the Auditor General's report on local authorities for the year ended 31 December 2022. The objectives of the inquiry: the committee sought to establish the progress made by Karoi Town Council in addressing audit findings mentioned in the 2022 Auditor General's report and the status of implementing recommendations made in the reports. Methodology: the committee received oral evidence and written submissions from Karoi Town Council, and the information gathered enabled the committee to compile a comprehensive report. Committee findings: council schools. The council did not account for the revenue, expenses, and some assets and liabilities for its 6 schools in the financial statements, contrary to accounting standards. As a result, the segment information did not include education services segment. The committee findings regarding this issue: the committee found out that Karoi Town Council had delegated the authority to school development committees, which was an oversight on the part of the council. As a result, the council did not maintain accounting records for schools. To address the issue, Karoi Town Council informed the committee that a clear roadmap had been developed to employ competent bursars to perform the accounting function at schools by January 2025. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, an installation of ERPs at schools that will be linked to the main server at the council main office was indicated to be part of the efforts to address the audit findings. Council indicated that the cost of the ERP will be catered for in August 2025 budget. Karoi Town Council promised to submit monthly financial and carry out internal audits of the school from 2025 January. The observation, Madam Speaker: the committee observed that Karoi Town Council was not considering schools as part of its assets, and hence did not do the consolidation of schools' accounts into the council's financial statements. This error of omission was creating a smokescreen, mystifying the true reflection of the financial statement of the council. The recommendations by the committee is that the council must consolidate schools' financial statements by 31 August 2025. Then when it comes to the issue of valuation of property, plant and equipment, Madam Speaker, the Auditor General noted that the council did not revalue its property, plant and equipment to reflect the current value of assets to comply with IPSAS 17. The committee findings, Madam Speaker, are that the committee found out that the Karoi Town Council had not done any revaluation exercise of its property, plant and equipment as observed by the Auditor General. However, the council has been working on ERP networking and clearance of audit backlogs to facilitate the gaps in excellent implementation of IPSAS matrix. The Town Council submitted before the committee that the revaluation exercise will be done during the 2025 financial year. The observation by the committee, Madam Speaker: the work on ERP networking and clearance of audit backlogs is a welcome initiative by Karoi Town Council to make meaningful headway. However, it is paramount for the council to address the revaluation of plant equipment as noted by the Auditor General. The recommendations by the committee recommended that Karoi Town Council must continue with the current efforts of ERP networking and, most importantly, conclude the revaluation of plant equipment by 31 August 2025. The Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion must monitor progress on the adoption of IPSAS by public entities and report to Parliament biannually. Madam Speaker, on the registration of vehicles, the Auditor General noted that the Council had 7 vehicles not registered in its name. 2 vehicles were not yet registered, and 5 of these vehicles were registered in the name of third parties, in contravention of the Vehicle Registration and Licensing Act, Chapter 13. In addition, the Council did not provide registration books for the 6 motor vehicles. The findings, Madam Speaker, the committee found out that the vehicles in question were allegedly bought by Karoi Town Council from a third party by the name of Mr. Richardson and had remained in the name of the seller. This was a serious oversight on the part of the council management, which has since created a laborious process of registering the cars under Karoi Town Council. However, further findings pointed out that the vehicles were almost obsolete and council intends to auction them. Efforts by Karoi Town Council were currently underway to get clearance from the CID for some of the vehicles. The observation by the committee, Madam Speaker, the committee observed that the delay in changing the vehicle ownership was a serious oversight on the part of management. The matter that was raised by the Auditor General has not been addressed by Town Council. The recommendation by your committee. The committee recommends that the vehicles in question must be changed ownership from the seller's name to Karoi Town Council by 30 August 2025 before they are disposed of. Then there is the issue of fuel, Madam Speaker. Fuel for road projects. The Auditor General noted that the Council did not maintain a fuel register and perform reconciliations for road project fuel. The findings of the committee are that the committee gathered that fuel was registered in fuel issue forms which did not state the purpose of the fuel. This was a major oversight that compromised the transparency process of fuel management. Karoi Town Council acknowledged the observation. Then on observation, Madam Speaker, it was observed that the Council was not keeping proper records for acquittals and reconciliations. And the committee recommended that the Council Chief Executive Officer must set up an investigation on the management of fuel and properly account for fuel used by 30 August 2025. On the issue of valuation row, the Auditor General noted that the Council did not have an updated valuation row contrary to the requirements of the Urban Councils Act, Chapter 25, and could not determine the basis used in charging assessments rates. As a result, the Council was not billing ratepayers for stands sold between 2008 and 2010. The committee findings were that the committee found out that the Karoi Town Council did not view 9 rateable stands from a sample of 17 stands in Kubatana area. The Council had not been updating its valuation row prior to 2024, which saw a draft valuation row being crafted and now awaiting approval by the valuation board. Further findings by the committee noted that some properties were left out from the billing platform as they were not properly communicated to the Treasury from the Housing Department. Then observations, Madam Speaker, and recommendations is an updated valuation row will assist in to identifying properties that are not captured in the Treasury billing database. Going forward, stands allocated by the Housing Department must be communicated to the Council's Treasury Department for immediate billing of service charges. Then billing of properties, Madam Speaker. The Auditor General noted that the Council was not billing ratepayers for stands sold between 2008 and 2010. And the findings of the committee were that significant progress had been made by the Karoi Town Council to rectify the finding by the Auditor General. The properties sold between 2008 and 2010 were identified and have been incorporated in the billing system. Council had also procured the LAD software to account for stand sales, and the same information can now be accessed by the Treasury Department. The observations and recommendations by the committee were that going forward, stands allocated by the Housing Department must be communicated to its Treasury Department for immediate billing of service charges. Then on the issue of BIAO procurement and sales, Madam Speaker, the stands on the issue of the BIAO's procurement, Madam Speaker, the Auditor General noted that the Council was operating BIAOs without cash register or tills, cash was being utilized to buy beer before it was receipted or banked. The findings of the committee were that Council admitted that the cash from sales were being used before banking it. Karoi Town Council indicated that the purchases were now done by the Procurement Management Unit through requisitions. Observations by the committee: the use of cash for beer sales violated Section 48 of the Statutory Instrument 144 of 2019 in Public Finance Management Treasury Instructions, which instructs that all revenue received by collectors shall be deposited in the local bank. The use of cash directly from the cash register postulates the potential for misuse and abuse of cash received. The recommendations by your committee, Madam Speaker, is that all cash received from beer sales must be banked within 24 hours of receipt, as per the provisions of Statutory Instrument 144 of 2019. Then on the progress that has been done by the Karoi Town Council regarding prior recommendations that were done by the Auditor General. The Auditor General observed that Karoi Council did not make any progress in addressing audit findings raised in the 2022 annual audit report. The committee found out that out of the 10 audit issues, Karoi Town Council only addressed the 4, Madam Speaker. The 4 that includes the asset management policy. On asset management policy, Karoi Town Council came up with an asset management policy now which awaits council approval. Then there is the issue of unallocated deposits. The finding was addressed. An account clerk was appointed to finalize allocating the unallocated deposits. On the issue of revenue from stand sales, the Auditor General found out that the receipts from the stand sales debtors are not yet linked to the respective debtors accounts due to the absence of a database. The findings of the committee, Madam Speaker. The committee found out that the Karoi Town Council has managed to compile a stands database from March 2024. The stands are now being accounted for on an accrual basis. And to this end, receipts are updated on accounts on every payment made by customers. Then on the issue of beer levy, the Auditor General observed that payment of beer levy by breweries was not up to date. To address this audit finding, Council had engaged the breweries and remittances form were now accessible. Then on the issue of the valuation of land, the Auditor General had noted that Karoi Town Council had not done land valuation on where its assets are placed, and its observation is still yet to be addressed by the Town Council. Although the committee was informed of the Council's plans to engage the Minister of Local Government and Public Works to facilitate the valuation of stands, no tangible progress has been made by the Council so far. The recommendations by the committee is that the Council must engage the Minister of Local Government and Public Works to facilitate the valuation of land by 30 August 2025. Then on the issue of assets with zero values in the books of accounts, the Auditor General recommended that Karoi Town Council must conduct a revaluation of the assets. The committee found out that and gathered that the Karoi Town Council intended to complete the exercise in 2024 and had already started the process. The recommendation by your committee is that the revaluation of the assets must be done by 30 August 2025. On the issue of council clinics, the Auditor General found out that the finding was partially addressed. Construction of Shiedza Clinic was now in progress, and the construction of Kubatana Clinic was still on the cards and was expected to commence in 2024 financial year. The findings of your committee, Madam Speaker. The committee found out that the construction of Shiedza Clinic was now 85% complete, while efforts were currently underway to procure a mobile clinic for Kubatana. The committee observed that resource constraints were impeding the progress towards completing the clinic. And the recommendation by the committee was that all outstanding construction of Shiedza Clinic and the procurement of a mobile clinic for Kubatana be done by 30 August 2025. Then in terms of registration of motor vehicles, Madam Speaker, the Auditor General found out that there were 5 vehicles not yet registered in the council name, which Karoi Town Council had not addressed. The committee findings were that the committee was informed that the registration of the 5 vehicles was being delayed by the process of transferring the vehicles from the ownership of Mr. Richardson to Karoi Town Council. It was further submitted that the vehicles were almost obsolete, and Council intended to auction them once registration was complete. The committee recommends that the vehicles in question must be changed ownership from the seller's name to Karoi Town Council by 30 August 2025 and be disposed of. In terms of the delivery of refuse compactor truck, the Auditor General found out that the refuse truck procured by Karoi Town Council was not yet delivered by the Solution Motors. The committee was informed that the council was engaging its legal advisor over the issue, and the application for condonation with the Procurement Regulatory Authority had been overtaken by events. In terms of the observation, Madam Speaker, the committee observed that Solution Motors has had a worrying reputation of not delivering vehicles after receiving payment from public entities. This non-delivery of motor vehicles after payment has been continuing. Recommendation from the committee recommends that Solution Motors and all its rebranded companies must be permanently debarred from supplying vehicles paid by public funds. Then on the delivery of goods, the council overtook the application for condonation. Observations by the committee. The committee noted that the arrangement to purchase 48 reams of bond paper instead of the safety belt was likely a cover-up for the misappropriation of public funds. The cost of the 48 bond reams does not add up to the $1,100 which was paid. The committee recommends that the issue be investigated by the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission by 30 August 2025. Lastly, on the issue of the progress on bringing statutory audits up to date in compliance with the Public Finance Management Act. Status of submission. The committee gathered that the 2022 financial statements for the Karoi Town Council were now ready for audit, while the 2023 financial statements were in progress and expected completed by the end of November 2024. The challenges causing the delay in completing the financial statements were gathered to be stemming from the mixing up of the United States dollars and the local currency transactions, which the accounts clerks were working to resolve. Karoi Town Council further informed the committee that its accounting system was now semi-computerized and accounts clerks were engaged on contract basis to assist in updating the financial records. To further aid the staff complement, the council was in the process of advertising to fill the billing clerks' vacancies. The observations by the committee. The failure to submit financial statements is a serious breach of the Public Finance Management Regulations, and Karoi Town Council must submit all its outstanding financial statements within the timelines set by the PFMA without fail. The committee notes that the non-submission of financial statements is a worrying trend within local authorities. Chief Executive Officer of councils were not fulfilling their obligations of submitting financial statements on time. The recommendations by the committee recommends that the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Local Government and Public Works must initiate disciplinary measures for chief executive officers or chairpersons of local authorities who are not up to date in submitting their financial statements by 31 August 2025. The committee again further recommends that the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Local Government and Public Works must not approve the 2025 budgets for the councils or the 2026 budgets for the councils which have not submitted their financial statements. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the committee is optimistic that the issues identified by the Auditor General report in 2023 on Karoi Town Council's 2020 audited financial statements will be addressed through concerted efforts of implementing the committee's solid recommendations. In this regard, the committee implores all the stakeholders to take the recommendations made by the committee seriously, so as to ensure financial prudence, restore sanity, transparency, and efficiency in the use and management of public funds by the Karoi Town Council. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Stone. The question before the House is a motion by Honorable G. Stone that the House considers and adopts the report of the Public Accounts Committee on Karoi Town Council's audited accounts 2020 in the 2023 Auditor General's Report SC7 2025. Is there any debate? Honorable Mangondo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Mangondo. I recognize Honorable Mangondo.
I'm the one that's second, Madam Speaker, no?
But on my list here, there is Honorable Mangondo. It's okay, Honorable, you can proceed. Order, Honorable Mangondo. Honorable, you can proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Thank you for affording me this opportunity. Greetings from Orove, greetings from Karoi. One more, I need just to add my 2 cents, Madam Speaker. Section 298 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe obliged all institutions handling public funds to do so with transparency, accountability, and prudence. What we are confronted with today is a disturbing portrayal of negligence, mismanagement, and failure to uphold this sacred values upon which the trust between citizens and their government is built. Madam Speaker, ma'am, this report is not merely an administrative postscript. It is a wake-up call to restore discipline, integrity, and professionalism in our local governance system, particularly in a town as strategically positioned as Karoi, at the heart of Urungwe, rich in human potential and public expectations. The Auditor General unearthed that Karoi Town Council had failed to include the revenue, the expenses, and the assets of 6 council-administered schools in its financial accounts. By outsourcing financial control to school development committees without any meaningful oversight, the council abdicated its duty to account for public education resources. This omission created a smokescreen, Madam Speaker, distorting the true financial position of the local authority. I support the recommendation that the council must consolidate all school accounts in the main ledger account and complete ERP installation by now. We cannot talk of Vision 2030, Madam Speaker, or inclusive education without when the financial schools are concealed in a bureaucratic way. Furthermore, the failure to revalue assets, council assets, and the revelation that several council vehicles remain registered in the name of a third party years after their alleged purchase reflects a management culture devoid of seriousness. The council is sitting on absolute unregistered vehicles while pretending to save a growing urban population. This is not inefficiency, it is negligence. We cannot allow public assets to be reduced to private convenience or ghost records. Hence, I fully supported the committee's recommendation that all such vehicles be registered under Karoi Town Council by now, before disposal. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the absence of a fuel register for road projects and the dubious procurement swap of 1,100 worth of safety belts converted into 48 reams of bond paper without documentation is not just poor recording, it is a rig of corruption. I echo the committee's recommendation for the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission to investigate this matter thoroughly. Let us send a clear message that every dollar counts and every misused cent will be accounted for. Moreover, Madam Speaker, ma'am, the committee found that the construction of Chieza Clinic is only 85% complete, while Kubatana awaits a mobile clinic. In Hurungwe, expectant mothers are walking for kilometers to access basic health service, while construction delays and drags on. Let Karoi Town Council meet both Chieza and Kubatana Health Center by the end of this month. Public health cannot be paused because of poor planning and resource mismanagement. Additionally, Madam Speaker, ma'am, the failure by Karoi Town Council to submit its financial statements on time is a blunt breach of the Public Finance Management Act. Of the 10 key audit issues raised by the Auditor General, only 4 were addressed. The area cannot continue unchecked. I strongly support a recommendation that the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Local Government must initiate disciplinary proceeding against any council CEO who fails to submit financial statements on time. And secondly, councils that have not submitted up-to-date financial statements must not have their 2025 budget approved. Madam Speaker, ma'am, what is happening in Karoi is a symptomatic of a larger governance rot. If we allow this level of recklessness to persist, we are not just losing money, we are losing the public confidence. Let us also demand that the Minister of Finance and Economic Development report to Parliament biannually on the implementation of IPSAS and other financial standards. Oversight without timeline is just a noise. Enforcement with the action line is action. Let this report not gather dust. Let it become a living blueprint for reform. I propose that this Parliament adopt this report in full and direct Karoi Town Council to submit a
prior year findings. Whilst Karoi Town Council made a concerted effort to try and clear some of the issues, but Madam Speaker, it is quite abnormal for us to be talking about the 2020 financial year in the 2023 Auditor General's report. This makes the life of the Auditor General also difficult, because one would have expected that in terms of meeting the Auditor General's statutory deadlines to submit the prior year's finances, the Auditor General's report for the prior year by 30 June, they would in fact be reporting 3-4 years, in arrears. This is not to be expected, particularly in this modern era of technology. The councils needed to invest in ICT, in enterprise resource systems, which will enable them to bring up to date their accounts, their finances, and be able to meet their statutory deadlines on time. We have a situation where even big councils like City of Harare have had challenges with the ERP systems, just like we are having with Karoi Town Council. They do not have a viable and efficient enterprise resource planning system. So the committee feels very strongly, Honorable Speaker, Ma'am, that councils need to invest in enterprise resource planning systems that enable them to function efficiently and effectively. You look at the revenue, potential revenue, which is being lost by councils due to antiquated systems, due to age-old systems which no longer enable the councils to collect their revenues efficiently. So it's a major recommendation of the committee that councils do and must invest in efficient ERP systems in order for them to maximize on efficiencies and revenue collection. Another important point, Honorable Speaker, Ma'am, has to do with the failure by the public sector to ensure most public sector organizations, MDAs included, do have challenges in ensuring that when they pay for goods and services, those goods and services are delivered timelessly so that they're used for the purposes intended. And the Karoi was not an exception. Hence, the observation where an extension ladder and circuit bulbs were then, if you like, replaced by 14 dreams of bond paper. That's a serious weakness. I've already touched on the issue of bringing statutory deadlines in line with the Public Finance Management Act. I think what is critical to observe is that this should be a key result area for all the accounting officers in the public sector. You see accounting officers, be it of rural district councils or those RDCs, being rated favorably in terms of their performance, and yet they would have failed to submit their financial statements on time. I cannot overemphasize, Madam Speaker, the importance of submitting statutory financial statements in accordance with the law, in accordance with the Public Finance Management Act, and in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic. Madam Speaker, the committee recommended that councils that would have failed to submit their finances should not have their budget approved. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mangondo. I recognize Honorable M. Rombezi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today I'm not only rising before you as a representative of people, but as a watchdog against the rot, impunity, and the quiet collapse of accountability in our local governance structures. Madam Speaker, the Public Accounts Committee report on the Karoi Town Council reads like a catalogue of corruption, masked as incompetence, excused as oversight, and prolonged under the guise of reforms. Madam Speaker, how do we explain a council operating schools without maintaining financial records? 6 schools, public institutions, where fees are collected from struggling parents, yet no record of how the money is used. This is not just negligence, Madam Speaker, it is a deliberate concealment of public funds. Worse still, how can a town council fail to register vehicles it claims to own? Vehicles worth thousands and thousands of taxpayers' money. 7 vehicles, Madam Speaker, 2 unregistered, 5 still in the name of the seller, yet they are being used, fueled, and probably serviced at council's expense. Is this not just a classic asset laundering through bureaucratic apathy? Madam Speaker, if this House does not call this corruption, what will we call it? The Auditor General flagged fuel irregularities, no register, no reconciliations. The committee found out that fuel was issued with no clear purpose in a country where citizens are struggling to pay taxes, where citizens are struggling to pay rents. We cannot account for liters disappearing into thin air. Who is benefiting from this? The council paid for a rescue truck. It was never delivered. How many more councils have lost funds to this same supplier? And why is it still allowed to operate in public procurement? Where is PRAS? Where is Zach? And now we learn that the council failed to submit financial statements in 2022 and 2023 in time. This is not just a paperwork problem. It is a deliberate refusal to allow scrutiny. This is financial sabotage, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we must stop treating corruption as an accounting anomaly. This is economic violence against the people of Zimbabwe. These delays are not benign. They mean mothers cannot access clinics, schools go without textbooks, roads remain pothole-ridden, while money is siphoned through ghost assets, fake procurements, and cash-based. Scams. Madam Speaker. For councils that submit complete audited financials. Number 4, Madam Speaker, this parliament must urgently push for digital, publicly accessible dashboards of all local authority budgets, procurements, and assets. Madam Speaker, corruption is no longer hidden. It is on the balance sheets, the fuel logs, the missing trucks, and the ghost safety belts. If we continue to treat this as irregularities, we will remain a captured state run on receipts of looted hope. Madam Speaker, the time for political will is now. This parliament must rise or risk becoming complicit. I so submit.
Thank you, Honorable Murombezi. Honorable Einkani.
Maita basa Patriotism. Ndoda kungowedzera mashoko mashomanana pane zvakawanda zvataurwa nevamwe vatungamiriri vedare rino pamusoro pekuongororwa kwemabhuku Karoi Town Council. Chekutanga mubati wechigaro ndechekuti yatinoti audit kana kuti ofisi yaauditor general zvichireva ofisi yakaiswa nehurumende kuti anga achiongorora mafambisirwo emari dzehurumende, mafambisirwo emari dzemakanzuru, mafambisirwo nemanyorerwo ezvose zvinenge zvichiitika mumakanzuru. Basa reofisi nderekuti kana richinge raongorora basa rakaitwa kana kuti remanyorerwo nemafambisirwo emari, vanonyora gwaro ratinoti audit report. Iri gwaro ndo rinouya kudare kuno, rouya kukomiti yedu yepark kana kuti yepublic accounts, kuti tione kuti mari yehurumende iri kufambiswa zvakanaka here, zviwanikwa zvehurumende zviri kunyorwa here mumabhuku zvakanaka. Hero dambudziko mubati wechigaro ndopandiri kuda kunyanya kubata ini ipapo. Tiri kuti gore rino ofisi ya Auditor General iri kuti takaona kuti aiwa midziyo imwe haimo mumabhuku, zvakati hazvisi kufambiswa zvakanaka, masitende haana kunyorwa mumabhuku, vonyora muripoti vopa kukanzuru. Kanzuru iya chaitwa hapana. Vatungamiriri vekanzuru chavaita hapana, vanongozviverenga voisa pasai. Pane zvavanotaura. Unonzwa vachiti aiwa hatina vanogona kunyasonyora zvakanaka mabhuku. Angave maministri chaiwo, tine dambudziko rekuti anoita makore kana mashanu anoteedzana, auditor achitambura nechinhu chimwe chete pasina chiri kuitika. Ini ndiri kuti imba inoyi iye zvino ngaiise mutemo wekuti vanenge vasingagadzirisi zviri kugara zvichitaurwa naAuditor General ngavasungwe, ngavabudewo mumapepa, voiswawo listi kuti ava havasi kuziva zvavari kuita, kana zvichigona voenda havo vonozorora kumba. Ma-accountants kana kuti vanyori vemabhuku pavanodzidziswa kuchikoro kuna anonzi ma-accounting standards, kureva kuti zvinotarisirwa kuti munhu anonyora mabhuku emari anofanira kunge achitarisa ichi nechichi nechichi, zvakawiriranwa kudare rinoona nezvekunyorwa kwemabhuku kunze uku. Ende izvozvo vanozviziva asi havadi kuzviteedzera. Mubati wechigaro, regai ndigare pasi ndichiti tinoda kuti tinzwe kuti kuKaroi Town Council, kanzuru yeKaroi, aiwa kwaita mhere yekuongororwa kwechokwadi nekusungwa kwevanhu, nokuti mari dziri kuvhiringidzwa imari dzevanhu. Maita basi.
Tinotenda Honorable Nkani. I recognize Honorable W. Maposa.
Good afternoon, Honorable Women.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this issue. On the financial statement in the Audit General Report for the year ended 2021 to 2022, Honorable Speaker, Madam, the Public Accounts Committee in Zimbabwe or outside Zimbabwe is a post-audit committee of National Assembly that examines the financial affairs and accounts of governments, departments, state and owned institutions and local authorities for the accountability. Honorable Speaker, Madam, this committee plays a crucial role in reviewing the audit, general reports, and other financial reports for statements. It's so disheartening, Honorable Speaker, ma'am, when we hear local authorities and other departments, they are failing to account for what they've learned at school. Public Accounts Committee conduct of post-audit or public funds ensuring that they are spent according to their intended purpose. If not that, we can come into the House and report how the money has been spent and give some recommendation for the adoption in the House to monitor to be to that money that to be recovered. Honorable Speaker, ma'am, the PAC Committee examines the reports from the Office of the Auditor General, who is responsible for auditing the accounts of various state entities, ensuring compliance with laws, regularities, and to follow government policies and related to public finance. PAC or public accounts makes recommendation to Parliament and government regarding financial management and accountability through the audit reports and findings. PAC works closely with the Auditor General's Office, who provide experts and reports to Public Accounts Committee, and also monitor expenditures, unlimited oversight, power over all the state revenues and expenditure, to see and align with Parliament approval and legal frameworks. PAC, Honorable Speaker, Madam, and audit, examine, analyze, and interpret accounting records to prepare financial statements, give advice, and correct what needs to be done. Honorable Speaker, Madam, in accounting, an auditor is an independent professional who examines and verifies the accuracy of an organization, financial records, and reports by doing audit, and gives correction where people are doing shortcuts. Honorable Speaker, PAC and Public Accounts Audit, they verify the financial statements present and true and fair view of the company or public financial position, auditors, and effectiveness of the national control and designed to ensure the integrity of financial reporting. Honorable Speaker, Madam, audit looks for potential fraud or other irregularities that might be present in the financial records of any organization or any local authorities, like Urungwe, as has been reported in the report. Auditors do their accounting audit, then after they are given issues on opinion or on the financial statements, stating whether they are fairly presented. Honorable Speaker, ma'am, here in Zimbabwe, we have a lot of types of auditors. We have got internal auditors, independent auditors, government auditors, specialized auditors, and forensic, even tax auditors, which will audit and give a report. Honorable Speaker, Madam, in all these local authorities and other organizations, it doesn't mean they don't know what they are doing. I think they are doing it deliberate. And we are leaving them just to go without being arrested. So I submit. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Any further debates? I recognize Honorable Matswanika.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Firstly, I would like to applaud honorable members who debated in front of me. I'm sure it's now clear that we are the 10th Parliament is patriotic in ensuring that state resources are used efficiently. Let me also put my input, Madam Speaker, with regards to the 2020 Karoi Town Council audit report, in line with the report produced by the Committee of Public Accounts. First and foremost, Madam Speaker, there is this issue which has been recurring over time, the issue of non-adherence to international public sector accounting standards, IPSAS. First of all, Madam Speaker, is the issue of non-compliance with IPSAS number 4. IPSAS number 4, Madam Speaker, talks about the reporting in terms of situations where exchanges are changing. Madam Speaker, on February 22 of 2019, the Central Bank of Zimbabwe issued the directive on foreign exchange, the Exchange Control Directive, to the effect that the RTGS dollar and the US dollar was 1:1 in line with SI 33 of 2019. Madam Speaker, Karoi Town Council was supposed to use the spot rate or the interbank rate after the February 22 directive. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, in terms of valuation of its assets, this Karoi Town Council continued to use the 1:1, regardless of the fact that the exchange rate moved from the 1:1 as set by the Exchange Control Directive of the Reserve Bank. So this is surely a fundamental issue that affected the material misstatement in the accounts of Karoi Town Council. So they failed fundamentally in this regard. Secondly, Madam Speaker, they also failed to address IPSAS 17. Madam Speaker, IPSAS 17 talks about the valuation of property, plant and equipment, valuation of assets in general. Actually, what it means, Madam Speaker, it says that you should continuously revalue assets when there are changes in terms of value. Under normal circumstances, Madam Speaker, or under the circumstances of Karoi has failed substantially to deal with this issue because the value sitting in the balance sheet of Karoi's assets did not reflect the true value of such assets. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, Karoi Town Council failed also to deal with IPSAS number 12. IPSAS number 12, Madam Speaker, talks about the valuation of inventory. We're not talking about inventory, we are referring to stocks. The stock of a city council depends on the programs which it offers. The council of Karoi has got stock or inventory in terms of stands because those are its products in their line of business. The council of Karoi has got stock in terms of medical supplies because it has got medical clinics which are under its jurisdiction. So those clinics becomes a stock. So we are saying the medical supplies, the reporting in terms of stocks, they were not accounted for. Then you also look at the issue of drugs, the issue of building materials and office supplies. So if you look at this, Madam Speaker, whenever there is non-accountability in this kind of situation, it is clear that the risk of fraud was evident under Karoi Town Council. Madam Speaker, let me talk about the issue of failure by Karoi Town Council to do what is called segment reporting in line with IPSAS 18. IPSAS 18 says, if you have got a separate item like schools, clinics, you must report them segmentally. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, the Karoi Town Council has also failed substantially in this regard. There was no accountability in terms of school revenue. There was no accountability in terms of the schools which they operate, in terms of expenditure. There was no accountability virtually in terms of nothing. So in that regard, Madam Speaker, corruption is evident. Madam Speaker, let me talk about governance issues which affected Karoi Town Council. Meant for the benefit of the House, Madam Speaker, whenever the Auditor General says the auditor fails to get supporting evidence or there is risk of fraud, It's actually a light way to say there was outright corruption. As politicians and members of parliament, we don't have to shy from the reality of what is happening on the ground. It is the truth that there is corruption in Karoi Town Council. Madam Speaker, how do you explain a situation whereby the town council acquired 6 vehicles? 2 years down the line, 6 of them are still yet to be registered under the Vehicle Licensing and Registration Act. So this is very clear, Madam Speaker, that if those vehicles are not registered, there is a high risk that one can take them, can take the vehicle with him to his home. Who can do anything about it? There's nothing, there's no follow-up. So it's easy to take those vehicles if they are not properly registered under the name of Karoi Town Council. Madam Speaker, ma'am, there is an issue of abuse of fuel allocated by Zinara. What happens, Madam Speaker, is Zinara collects toll fees. Zinara collects licensing, license fees. They then actually allocate to these town councils to say, for the development of your town councils, you can use this for a particular road, to develop this particular road. And they also give you fuel coupons for that matter. What is coming out from Karoi, Madam Speaker, is an indication that the fuel coupons given by Zinara were abused. How can Parliament keep quiet and behave as everything is normal when it is very clear that there was not even a single record on how these coupons were used? This is a serious cause for the concern, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me go to the issue of beer procurement and sales. It is common cause, Madam Speaker, that in the majority of councils, they've got their own assets for the beer outlets, which they then use as income-generating projects. What is happening in Karoi, Madam Speaker, is it clear that alcohol by this council and the sale of alcohol to individuals or to the generality of citizens was done without any record. So there was no record of sales, there was no record of expenses, there was no record of profit. To make matters worse, Madam Speaker, income collected from this bill was being used before it was spent. So how are we going to account under normal circumstances? How much exactly came from the bill? So we often complain that the councils don't have money, councils are under stress, but the problem that we are seeing from councils is outright and blatant corruption. That must be dealt with as a matter of agents. Madam Speaker, you will find that on this case of beer procurement, the manager also went on to collect cash and buy from outlets without any record of how much was bought. So I actually wish to add a recommendation to the report on public committee to say that a further investigation must be done in this regard, to go and collect all records, to get an audit on all records of the beers that have been bought from Delta and other outlets, so that we see how much exactly was collected from this beer. Because this forensic audit is very important, so that we see how much was misused, how much of our national income was misused. Madam Speaker, Chapter 17 of the Constitution is very clear. It mandates Parliament to ensure that all government revenue, including councils, is properly accounted for. It mandates Parliament to ensure that all government expenditure must be properly incurred. It mandates Parliament to ensure that all limits in terms of borrowing are properly adhered to. For that matter, therefore, Madam Speaker, I actually move to say our recommendations to have ZAC take effect or take action on this one is commendable, Madam Speaker. And I hope our recommendation will take effect, because it is so bad, fundamentally bad, for Parliament to sit and make recommendations that are going to be used. Can we at least in the future, Madam Speaker, change? Every recommendation by Parliament must be enforced. It must not be by choice, Madam Speaker. All those must be enforced without any choice or without any decision to say, Zaki may, because if it's a recommendation, Zaki may choose to act on the recommendation or not. And I don't know how best we can do about it, so that we make sure that all recommendations of the Public Accounts Committee are enforced without choice. I submit, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further debate? I recognize Honorable Ziki. I recognize Honorable Mapiki.
Maita basa mpado chigara. Ndinokutenda komiti iri kugona kunzvera nyaya. Ndikutarisa nyaya dzakaitika kuKaroi, ndozitarisa dzikuitika muHarare, muBulawayo, Mutare, Gweru, dzakada kungoti fananei. Dai pari pakutamba, vanhu vakubvunza kuti mwana ndowani anotamba zvakanyangara kudaro. Saka ndoda kuti komiti ndiitende nebasa rayakaita. Zviri kuita makanzuro akawanda, hakuzi kwokuti havazive kana kuti havana kuchikoro. Vakaenda kuchikoro zvakakwana, asi vanonyepera kuzungaira kuitira kuti basa ravo rokuba, rokuruta rifambire mberi. Zokumboti timboti havakwana kumboenda ma-accounting standards kana chii, aiwa vanotozviziva kuti ndizvozvo, asi nyaya yekuba ndomwe yaunenge wakavagara iwoyo. Pandaingofunga kuti dai ministry inodhira nevanhu ava yasimbaradza nyaya yeICT kuitira kuti vanhu ava vakasike kubatwa, uye mashandiro emareports a2020 anozotaurwa 2025. Pamwe wakaita munyaya iyi wese vanenge wafa kana kuti vanenge watiza wese. Saka panofanira kunge pano mukanawo zvakare pokuti kana nyaya idzi dzichangobva kuitika dzinofanira kunge dzichigarwa nadzo dzobva dzakasika kutsengwa. Parliament yobva yatora masimba ayo okuti zviite, nekuti Karoi yatofanira kunge yakutorwa nekomishini kubvira payakakotanga kuita izvi, nekuti wazhinji wacho waripo. Nyaya yemastenzi yataurwa iyi, vanodhikireya mastenzi mashoma, mamwe acho vanenge vachitobhadharisawo rende vachiisa mari muhomwe. Saka izvozvo kana zvatora nguva zvati zvatariswa nezvazvo, zvinozogona kunge kutaura kwatikuita nhasi kusina kana chimungo chakunokwanisa kuita. Nyaya yezinara yefuel yavari kupa makanzuro haizi Karoi chete. Makanzuro akawanda ari kuabhusa fuel yavari kupuhwa nezinara kana mumwe mukana yavari kupuhwa nezinara. Ndo imwe mari yavari kutora vachitambisa vanhu panzvimbo yekuti igredhe marodzi kana kuti iite sei. Asi kana zvanononga kupuhwa kutambirwa zvinhu zvinonetsa. Dambudziko rinozoitika ipapo nderokuti vashandi vekuzinara nevashandi vekanzuru vanoshanda futi pamwe chete panyaya dzokuvhara-vhara zvinhu izvi kuti zvisabude nekukasika. Saka inenge yakaita yavanoti organized chaos pachirungu, zvokuti kunenge kusina mumwe musvina anenge aripo. Saka ndaifunga kuti sehurumende panofanira kuti paongororwe nemamiriro akaita nyaya iyi. Ndafarira kutaura kwaHonorable Madziwanyika wachiti hurumende inofanira kunge ine mazino akati simbei kuti aite nyaya idzi, nekuti ukatarisa makanzuro ega ega anofanira kunge ane maprojects anoapa mari, asi hapana, vanonyepera kunge maprojects asingafambe zvakanaka. Kurima chaiko vanenge vane mapurazi asi vatadza kurima. Vamwe kuna Karoi uku kune mhuka zvemacampfire watadza, nekuti vanenge vane mukana wekuti vange vachitora mari vachiba mari, havazobati zvinhu zvedu zvifambe. Saka senyika ndaingofunga kuti panofanira kunge pane mutemo wakakwana zvakanyanya kuna ministry inodhira nevanhu ivava kuti inge ichikwanisa kunge ichigadzirisana nevanhu ivava zvisina zvakati simbei. Makanzuro akawanda patakakura isu takaona vachigona kurana kumhanyisa nyaya dzemabhava. Ndofunga vazhinji vari munomu ndinana Honorable Ningawa taimbomwa tese ichiri kunzi chirufaro bhiya wati zvemhamba izvi. Taiona mabhava achifamba zvakanaka stereo, asi pazosvikawo vamwe vechifanhava vakuda mari zvakawirisa, mabhava acho abva ashaya mabhuku, kwete kuti havakwanise, vanenge vachida kungona mukana wekuba mari. Saka mamiriro azvaita aya akuda kuti tiise musoro pamwe chete. Ndofunga kana tichitarisana pakadai haticharegha kutarisana nezvemabato, nekuti zvinhu zvese zviri kuzodzoka zvichingotibata tese, nyangwe riri bato rokwayeyo kana rokwaiyi, asi zviri kuzongotibata tese kana zvasvika pakadai, nokuti Karoi yanga ane nguva ndo zvakare isingakwanisi kutambisa vanhu mari, vashandi chaivo vanoti vana pombi yadona vasina chokutaura mukanzuru. Asi vazhinji vaunoona vakuru vemumakanzuru unoona vane mota dzakabereka mavhiri, ukaona vanoita basa rokutsvaira nemapuramba anenge achisunganidza ziripasi. Zvoreva kuti ndofunga hurumende inofanira kupa futi mutemo wokuti machief executive afanira kugara mukanzuru imomo makore 2 sezvikuitwa mapurisa. Kana vanobata mari dzefinance ngaapuwe 2 years contract obva ipapo. Zvino paanenge agarika atambarara semunyemba ndo pamunoona mari zvichibiwa zvokuti unoshaya kuti zvinhu zvafamba zvakaita sei. Saka ndaifunga kuti iyo seministry kana kuti separliament machief executive ngaangoitwawo zvinoitwa maofisa incharge wepolisi, vanogara vachitenderedzwa kunge chibage chiri kudyiwa mukanwa varege kugara panzvimbo imwe chete. Saka ndo pandaifunga ipapo kuti aiwa sehurumende ngatirege kusimba takangotarisa tichizongonotaura nenyaya painenge ichiita, nokuti kana ukatarisa pari zvino vanhu vagara zvakanyanya mukanzuru panyaya yeallocation yemastands, allocation yemawetlands zvakafanana namuHarare munomu, unoona kuti iwawo wanachamangwiza vanenge vari pamusoro ndio vanosimba vachitambara nenyaya idzodzo, zvinhu zvedu zvichitadza kufamba zvakanaka. Saka ndo zvandaifungawo inini kuti aiwa kukanzuru ngakurege kuitwa munhu anonzi anogara zvachose, ngakuiswe mutemo wokuti akangopuhwa kana gore kana chii ngaatenderedzwe, kana kuti ngaangopuhwa iri contract, kuita kuti nyaya yekuba iyi yatekeshera makanzuru ese, hatina inomboti kanzuru yakanaka, ese inyaya yekuba chete. Zimbabwe tiri kuzochema kuti zvinhu zvinokooma kunowashoma vari kudya mari wemumakanzuru iwo ana chief executive. Ukaenda kumakomo kuko kuHighlands uko unoona kune dzimba dzokutanga dzachererwa kunge gomo pasi pegomo achiwaka. Wozobvunza kuti anosenza basa rei? Anosenza kukanzuru yeKaroi. Anotambira mari, anotambira $600. Azokwanisa chei kuwaka zimba rakadai? Ndo mumwe mutemo watinofanira kunge tichiteera, tichienforsa mutemo watakataura isusu kuti ngationei kuti mari yashanda nemunhu yabva kupi. Izvozvo zvinogona kutibatsira nekuti makanzuru hamuna kumira mushe. Saka aiwa mubato wechigaro ndangotiwo regai tiise manzwi angu mashoma akadai maita basa.
Thank you. Any further debates? I recognize Honorable James.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this report in its entirety, and I can concur with everything that has been said up to now. But I'd like to go further. No doubt we'll hear more reports of other cities in a similar situation. We hear from time to time that recommendations from the Auditor General's office are not carried out, or they have to, or local authorities have to be pushed into implementing them. I'd like to make a recommendation that perhaps between the local government ministry, the Auditor General's office and the Portfolio Committee, Public Accounts Committee, insist that local authorities submit perhaps a bi-monthly report on the progress on implementation of these recommendations. And these reports done by the elected finance committees and ratepayers associations, and that these reports are published in the local newspapers so ratepayers can understand or get a better understanding of what is happening within their finance departments. I think this will go a long way in allowing ratepayers to know exactly what's happening and to put pressure on making sure that these issues that we've heard today are not happening the whole time. So submit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? I recognize Honorable Togarepi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise also to debate on this motion. Madam Speaker, it's so painful when I hear honorable members from both sides
saying when they went for this investigation, they discovered that there was rot, and the rot seemed to be with a lot of impunity, where public funds can be used by somebody recklessly without consequence. Madam Speaker, I feel the committee must call in the Minister of Local Government in this case and get from him why there hasn't been action in many of these local authorities. Madam Speaker, it's not only urban authorities, urban councils, even the rural councils. These people are corrupt. They have the courage of keeping vehicles, such a big asset, without registration. And when that car disappears, who can follow up? How do you follow up? Because the car is not owned by anybody. They can just register it in another person's name anytime. How many other things have been taken from the public by these characters? Madam Speaker, I think as Parliament, we need, especially the Portfolio Committee on Budget and Finance, PAC, and local authorities. I think they need a joint process to deal with this rot. We cannot have service delivery breaking down in all our local authorities. Yet the Auditor General is telling us where the money is going. When there is rot and we just keep quiet, we come here and lament. I think people of Zimbabwe may not be happy with us. We need really noise that we must make as members of Parliament. And I'm happy we are united on this one. We have a lot of areas where revenue, government income must be spent on. Our health, our schools, salaries for civil servants, and everywhere. But that money is now taken to go and support local authorities who are stealing clearly during the day. And we see it and we keep quiet. I think PAC must take the Minister of Local Government to task. Because we want to know not only Karoi, it's Karoi which we are debating today, but we need to request audit for all local authorities because we know it's happening everywhere. And if they can't run, in fact, it's not about commissions. It's about firing those who are involved. Because if you bring in a commission, you are masking, you are covering for a person who is a criminal. Why don't we just fire those, take them to jail, then bring new people? And when people know that if you do this, you'll be fired, you know that people won't do that. But I am shocked that we have a local authority that has got 6 schools and they have no record about these schools' operations, no financial statements about these schools. And it's business. And how many years has this been happening? And if you look at the Auditor General's report, you find that this has been mentioned many times and nothing has been done. What are we trying to do? People go to tender, he tells you that he's going to supply this, and you give him that tender, he decides to bring you bond paper. My God, what is this? What type of, even the chief executive officer of this local authority, how did he receive the bond paper?
achiti chii aiti chii ichocho Please, I think we need something better than this. And as MPs, because we've gone there and witnessed the rot, we need more noise to this. And that noise can only come from the committee responsible for this investigation. And I think I should pray that if there is no lawyers who are in this house, help us. That if we discover something is going wrong at a local authority, we should be allowed by law as members of parliament to call in the police and even Zaki to come there immediately and we show evidence. Because as we debate here, cover-ups are starting somewhere. And you see these people will be questioned tomorrow morning, they are in the streets, they are in the same offices, continue with the looting. So this local authority must be our test case. Let's call in Zach, let's call in the police, let's call in the minister and say the committee on public finance, public accounts, can we all go to Karoi and show you evidence? And we want to, as people of Zimbabwe, want to see what you do so that others will learn from that. So, Madam Speaker, I really felt bad that we have such type of a report and these people would feign ignorance and claim that they don't have competent people. They then say it was an account error and so forth. We can't say you have a local authority with 10, 20,000 people run by incompetent people and uninformed people, and we allow it to happen like that. So maybe somebody is getting an advantage out of keeping incompetent people in that local authority. So, public accounts chairperson, through you, Madam Speaker, we really request we will bring it back in this house if we don't see action on Karoi. But we don't want it to end with Karoi. Wherever we come from, we know stories about stands. We know they work in complicity, land barons. We know that. And nothing is done to rectify that. So we want every local authority to be investigated, audited, and action taken. We want that money to support service delivery. But Bawa Council, they have been rented out. People rent out those council properties and do the same job and make money. But council can't make money. What is happening? So this corruption is not a political issue. We just want government public funds to go where they are supposed to go. So we need all, in fact, Madam Speaker, apana munhu ari muno muZimbabwe usingazivi kuti my local authorities, rural and urban, are corrupt. Apana usingazvizivi. Kuti mota dzinotengwa saizvozvi yotadza kudeliver. I'm sorry I'm using another language, but for vehicles being bought, paying government funds or public funds being paid, and there is no vehicle delivered. And we just keep quiet. Why should we keep quiet? Why? And look, we are lucky now, it's us as parliament, we've discovered this. Let's push Zach. And I hope you will go to the speaker and the speaker writes a letter to Zach and show them that report of our observations and we see action. If we don't, we call Zach here to say, what's happening? We got this evidence and these people accepted before us that they, if it was omission or commission, but for us it's total commission. They did the rot and they must be arrested. Madam Speaker, that's my feeling. I didn't want to debate on this one, but I saw the emotions from the members that we need to insist on action these criminals must go to jail. I think.
Thank you. Any further debates? I recognize Government Chief Whip to adjourn the debate.
Speaker, I move that we move to order number 23.
Adjourn the debate.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I move that the debate do now adjourn.
Who seconds?
I second, Madam Speaker.
It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who have that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the debate is adjourned. To what day, Government Chief?
Tomorrow, Madam Speaker.
The debate is adjourned to tomorrow.
Madam Speaker, I move that we move to order number 23.
Who seconds?
I second, Madam Speaker.
Is there an objection? No objection agreed to. The clerk will read the 23rd order of the day.
Agenda based on motion on the need to embrace the ideology of patriotism in the country.
When this debate was adjourned on 12th June 2025, the question before the House was a motion by Honorable Mapiki as set forth on page 1576 of today's order paper. Is there any debate? I recognize Honorable Samambwa. I recognize Honorable Kandal Saru.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I rise today not merely to support this motion, but to champion it as a critical national imperative. At the core of Zimbabwe's development puzzle lies not only infrastructure or economic policy, but a more profound and often overlooked element, the ideological infrastructure of our people. The transformation of Zimbabwe's mindset from one preoccupied with the survival to one oriented towards national prosperity must be deliberate and institutional driven. Madam Speaker, ma'am, with other focus on the roads we build and the policy we craft, I submit that most vital infrastructure must be construct is the human mind. Nation do not develop, people develop. People infused with the patriotic consciousness think differently, act differently, and achieve differently. Patriotism is not an abstract statement. It is a practical force multiplier for development. Madam Speaker, let us ask, why do some communities strive while others with equal resources float? The answer lies not in the material holding, but in their mental posture. The proposed National Institute of Ideology, and more so, the capacitation of the Heritage Temple School of Ideology, would serve as a strategic tool to systematically re-engineer our national consciousness. It would reorientate our thinking from scarcity to abundance, from individualism to collective progress. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the Heritage Temple School of Ideology is not just a symbolic institution. It must be a strategic pillar of our national pride. It should be strengthened, well-resourced, and fully mainstreamed into our national development agenda. More importantly, a nationwide awareness campaign must be launched to popularize its relevance, especially among the youth, the students, public servants, and the broader citizenry. Zimbabweans must come to understand that the ideology is not just the preserve of textbooks, but the blueprint from nation building. We often lament, brethren, but if we reframe it as an unrealized patriotic investment, our diaspora sends back billions in remittance. Imagine if they sent back billions in the patriotic capital, investment in communities, schools, technologies, and ideas, because they were raised to view Zimbabwe not as a place to escape, but as a platform for utmost wealthy creation. The Institute must cultivate what I call brain circulation, where Zimbabweans go abroad to learn, not to free, but to return and build their Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe that we want. This requires more than technical training, Madam Speaker, ma'am. It demands ideological formation. Madam Speaker, ma'am, Lincoln Valley was not built by people fearing America. It was built by people committed to American excellence. Similarly, Zimbabwe's innovation hubs will only flourish when our citizens begin to view entrepreneurship as a patriotic duty. This is what I call patriotic entrepreneurship, where business are launched not only for profit, but for national progress. Every enterprise becomes a declaration of faith in the Zimbabwe's future. Madam Speaker, ma'am, true patriotism is the greatest antidote to corruption. Law promises, but love is strength. A citizen who loves their country will not rob it. A patriotic civil servant will ask, how does this decision build the Zimbabwe that we want? A patriotic entrepreneur will ask, how does this idea advance our national agenda? This internal compass multiplies across the citizenry, creates a self-regulatory society. Madam Speaker, ma'am, productivity does not come from exertion alone, but from purpose. Japanese workers did not rebuild post-war Japan with machinery alone, but with an ideological commitment. The proposed institution would ignite Zimbabwe's productivity by linking every job, every sacrifice, and every act of service to a larger national vision. Patriotism also empowers culture. Indian monetarized Bollywood, South Koreans leverage K-pop, Jamaica strives on reggae. These were not commercial accidents, they were ideological triumphs. With the patriotic consciousness, we too can view our culture, our music, our literature, and tradition not as nostalgic lyrics, but as exportable intellectual property. The Heritage Temple School of Ideology and the Institute would instill this vision. Madam Speaker, ma'am, wealthy families think in generations, so must nations. These institutions would instill intergenerational thinking, where every decision is made not just for today, but for the grandchildren of tomorrow, our children. This transforms farmers into stewards, business people into legacy builders, and professionals into mentors. Moreover, patriotism fosters trust between citizen and citizen, and between citizen and the state, where trust strives, cooperation blooms, and development accelerates. Madam Speaker, in today's globalized world, patriotism is a competitive advantage. Investors are drawn to stability, unity, and national confidence. Tourists seek on that diaspora commit long to reconnect with pride. Patriotic institution enhance our global brand by creating citizens who are proud ambassadors of Zimbabwe. Let us conclude with evidence. nations with strong patriotic foundation demonstrate low capital flight, high domestic investment, strong innovative metrics, improved governance, sustainable economic growth. This is the transformation the National Institute of Ideology and the Heritage Table School of Ideology can ignite if we invest wisely. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the implementation must be robust yet inclusive. Program must be accessible via schools, workplace, community platforms, and digital media. The curriculum must be practical. Citizens must graduate not just with ideological clarity, but with the skills to contribute to the national development. Madam Speaker, ma'am, we stand at historic crossroads. We can either continue to patch up the present, or we can engineer a new national future by investing in our greatest asset, that is our minds, our people's minds. Let us strengthen the Heritage Table School of Ideology, and let's build the National Institute of Ideology. Let us rise and raise up a new generation that believes and that dreams and that builds the Zimbabwe that we want. So I submit. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Any further debate? I recognize Honorable Chiwanza.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker.
Good afternoon.
I rise to support the debate on patriotism. Madam Speaker, the issue of patriotism starts within the mind. A wise man once said, "Emancipate yourself from this mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." Our children, if they are raised not understanding the history of this country, not only the liberation history, but the liberation of our culture, the history of our culture. Who are we? Where are we coming from? Madam Speaker, patriotism is not only an act of doing, it's an act of behavior. We don't want to raise children. We don't want to raise children who do not understand who are we as Black people. Zimbabwe is a particular country which was formed or derived from a history of colonization. In other words, our history is distorted. It was told and written by the wrong people. And it's time that us as Black people start to straighten up and write our own history the way it happened. Pachishona, Madam Speaker, vanoti kuziva mbuya hudzwa. Vana vedu must know kuti chii chinonzi nyika. I was explaining in Shona to Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Order. Honorable Hlachwayo, may you please allow him to be heard in silence? Hlachwayo Gladys, you may proceed, Honorable Chwanza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Oxford Dictionary of Patriotism, it says, the quality of being patriotic, devotion, and to end vigorous support of one's country. So in other words, the Oxford Dictionary has already told us that our country is supreme. It comes first. It is the ultimate definition of what patriotism is. So I also believe that even in primary schools, things or institutions like Chitepo School of Ideologies must start even in preschools for them to know where we are coming from. In primary schools, Madam Speaker, issue of patriotism is non-partisan. It's got nothing to do with which party you belong to. We are Zimbabweans, we will forever be Zimbabweans. Our country comes first. Madam Speaker, there is a statement by a professor in India who said, a colonized mind socialized in a colonized way and it can only imagine a future that is colonized. For as long as that we don't decolonize our thinking, we don't have the sense of patriotism in our minds, we will forever live with a colonized mind. And we will never broaden our future, and we will never broaden our economy. Our president says, Nika inovakwa neve nevayo. We will never build it for as long as we don't know who we are. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Any further debate? I recognize Honorable Matsivanyika.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I wish, Madam Speaker, to highlight what I understand by the word patriotism. Madam Speaker, patriotism is a deep-seated emotional connection with one's country. It is actually a personal feeling of love and devotion to one's country. Madam Speaker, the issue of patriotism is inherent in every Zimbabwean who was born in Zimbabwe, who was actually born in Zimbabwe by birth or even by descent. If you watch, well, let me give you a good example to put things into perspective, Madam Speaker. If you watched Zimbabweans watching their national team playing against, for example, Zambia, playing against, for example, Angola or any other country, all Zimbabweans from all of life, they converge with that, the nationalism spirit. They converge with the loyalty to their team. They converge with the allegiance to their team. They converge, Madam Speaker, with the highest level of chauvinism. They converge, Madam Speaker, with the highest level of jingoism. That is patriotism. It cannot be legislated. It's something that comes naturally if we do good to each other in every sphere of life. Madam Speaker, ma'am, we can make laws in life generally. Laws can regulate behavior, Madam Speaker. Laws can actually establish boundaries, Madam Speaker. Laws can actually punish some acts, but laws cannot change someone's internal belief or internal feeling. What is important, Madam Speaker, in terms of patriotism is the behavior of us as leaders at this level. If we behave mutually differently, or as an example, the whole community or the whole nation will follow suit, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, ma'am, let me say this as a matter of fact. If we are patriotic, we all fight corruption at all levels. I would like to thank today's members of parliament, the 10th parliament. Today's debate was so robust, the debate on the issue of Karoi Town Council. That is an act of patriotism. What else do you want, Madam Speaker? Why do you want to make a law? Why do you want to have a motion on that? That is something that is inherent within us. It cannot be forced, it cannot be pushed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a patriotic Zimbabwean will ensure that the correct meaning of patriotism comes from government itself, from all its three arms: parliament, which is the legislative arm, executive, as well as the third arm of government, Madam Speaker. So you will find that if we don't demonstrate as government, we should demonstrate patriotism than to legislate it, than to talk about it. Let's demonstrate it. How do you do that, Madam Speaker? Number one, we must fight corruption at all levels of government if you are true about patriotism. Go to China. If you are involved in any kind of corruption, you are dead. You will be killed here instantly. As long as it is proved beyond any reasonable doubt, you go. That's an act of patriotism. However, Madam Speaker, in some instances, Madam Speaker, you see politicians celebrating Zikanandas who milk people's the income from which is supposed to benefit the national individuals. But that money we celebrate, say, I got a car, I got this, I got. That is so embarrassing. That is shallow-minded, and it's a sign of a lack of patriotism for our country. Let us start from there, Madam Speaker. Let us correct the issue of corruption in this country. Once that is done, everyone will be happy about this country. Everyone will be so willing to partake of their country. Everyone will be happy to defend their country. How can you defend a country which is benefiting a few? The real patriotism is one who fights corruption. That is very important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, how can one be patriotic? But when you go to our hospitals, there are no X-ray machines, Madam Speaker. There are no CT scanners, Madam Speaker. There are no diagnostic machines, Madam Speaker. There are no cancer machines, Madam Speaker. There are no surgical gloves, Madam Speaker. So if you say that there are no gloves, then you are saying you are being negative. You are not patriotic. You are not speaking good of your country. That is not correct, Madam Speaker. It is important, Madam Speaker. It is fundamentally correct to tell the correct position as it is. It is also important to take action as leaders to correct it. That way, we become patriotic, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I have noted with concern that the move of the motion is seeking for the establishment of the National Institute of Ideology. And some honorable members in their debate has also came to say, to give an example of the Herbert Stable School of Ideology. Let me be very clear, Madam Speaker. The Herbert Stable School of Ideology, in its current form, is directly partisan. We can't have that kind of a partisan ideology as a name to be a national ideology. It's not national in any way. Let me justify it, Madam Speaker. I will justify it in this way. If you look at the certificate, once you graduate, Madam Speaker, if you complete the graduation of Herbert Stable School of Ideology, you are given a certificate. And that certificate, Madam Speaker, at the bottom of it, it is signed by the political party, the ZANU-PF party political commissar, who is Comrade Machacha. I have seen that, Madam Speaker. So, whenever you bring this kind of situation to Parliament, to say we want all MPs, we want all leaders in government to have this, it becomes fundamentally flawed from the beginning. This government or this country is made up of people from all walks of life. We have got various political parties with various beliefs. We should be united by a single national ideology, which represents the interests of every Zimbabwean, not this kind of ideology that we have under the Herbert Stable School of Ideology. For that matter, therefore, Madam Speaker, if this ideology persists and the Parliament ratifies this to say we're going to continue with the Herbert Stable School of Ideology, I wish to categorically make it clear that count me out of that, and I'm ready to face the consequences. Madam Speaker, ma'am, a patriotic Zimbabwean, I was hearing all the members talking about our history, to say we must know where Zimbabwe came from. I 100% agree with them. Look, Madam Speaker, we are talking about patriotism in 2025. Yet the people who brought independence to this country are getting a meager $153 United States per month. Imagine that kind of level. Then you come here and say, we want to be patriotic, but we cannot as government mean our ways. Patriotism must be an act. It must be an internal conviction. Where are we as government? What I find, if it means we are rewarding those who fought for this country, giving them $153 per month, how are they going to pay for their bills, water bills? How are they going to pay for their medical bills? Most of them are becoming old. So, Madam Speaker, when we talk of patriotism, it's something that we earn through our behavior. Let us practice it first before we teach others. Madam Speaker, there is this issue, Madam Speaker. The assertion that patriotism is achieved by people in schools by teaching our kids our history. We already have our history being taught at schools, Madam Speaker. I don't see which kind of patriotism do we need at school. We teach history from where we came from. The first Chimurenga, the second Chimurenga, grievance by African grievance and everything. It is well documented. So I'm trying to figure out what kind of patriotism, what else do we want to teach our students. Madam Speaker, the people who fought for this country, the war veterans, they fought for one man, one vote principle. They fought to ensure that all Zimbabweans
Thank you. Any further debates? I recognize Honorable El Munemo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to air my voice on the motion raised by Honorable Mapiki. Honorable Speaker, let me reiterate on patriotism and ideology. Patriotism, or the love and devotion to one's country, can be a powerful force for shaping the next generation's legacy. It can foster a sense of shared identity, responsibility, and commitment to the nation's future. By instilling a strong sense of patriotism, Madam Speaker, society can encourage civic engagement, promote social cohesion, and inspire individuals to contribute to the well-being of the country. Here is how patriotism can shape the next generation's legacy, Madam Speaker, Fostering on civic engagement. Patriotism can motivate young people to participate in their communities and contribute to the democratic process. By understanding their rights and responsibilities as citizens, they are more likely to engage in political discourse, vote, and advocate for positive change. A strong sense of patriotism, Madam Speaker, can inspire them to work towards improving their society and ensuring a better future for all. It also promotes social cohesion. Patriotism can unite people from diverse backgrounds under a shared national identity. When individuals feel connected to their country and fellow citizens, they are more likely to cooperate, support one another, and work towards a common goal. This sense of unity can help overcome social divisions and create more harmonious society. Madam Speaker, a patriotism inspires a sense of responsibility. Patriotism can instill a sense of responsibility towards the nation's future. Young people who feel patriotic are more likely to take ownership of their country's challenges and work towards solutions. This sense of responsibility can motivate them to pursue education, develop their skills, and contribute to the economic and social development of their nation. Patriotism preserves cultural heritage, Madam Speaker, ma'am. It can involve a love for one's country, culture, traditions, and history. By valuing and preserving them, by valuing and preserving these aspects, societies can ensure that future generations inherit a rich and vibrant management and sustainable development practices. By instilling a sense of stewardship towards the environment, societies can ensure that future generations inherit a healthy and thriving planet. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, ma'am, patriotism can be a powerful force for shaping the next generation's legacy by fostering civic engagement, promoting social cohesion, inspiring a sense of responsibility, preserving cultural heritage, building sustainable future. When patriotism combined with commitment to justice, equality, progress, it can create a positive and lasting impact on society. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, ma'am.
Thank you. Any further debate? I recognize Honorable Shongeza.
Mazvita enyumba wechigaro. Tinoda kutenda nemukana uno wamandipa kuti nditsigire motion yakasimudzwa naHonorable Mapiki mukati memba ino ikatsigirwa naHonorable Mtimbanyoka. Motion yepatriotism. Mubati wechigaro, ndiri kuda kutaura ndichiti imba ino pachitaurwa nyaya yekukaroi. Dai makanzuru ese akaendeswa kuchitepo ideology, handifungi kuti uori hwavo vainyatsoita uori hwakanyanya kudaro. Nokuti vanhu vanenge vadzidziswa kuda nyika yavo, vasingade kuda kunzwa kuluta ivo vega. Ndiri kusapota zvakanyanya school of ideology yepatriotism yenyika yedu, kuti vana vedu vechidiki vatakabereka vanzwe kuda nyika yavo. Munhu wese ngaaende kuchitepo school of ideology. Mubati wechigaro, kubatana kwataita zuva ranhasi panyaya yehuori hwekukaroi, dai kuriko kubatana kwatakuita zvino pachitepo ichi. Ndiri kunzwa hangu vamwe vachiti chitepo ndebato. Haisi yebato, chikoro chokudzidzisa munhu wese kuti azive kuda nyika yake. Takaenda kuhondo ndiri mwana mudiki zvakanyanya, hondo yeMozambique ichirwirwa. Kuenda kunosunungura vabereki, neniwo kuzvisunungura ndakazvipira. Nekuda kwaizvozvo, Mwari vakaona zvakakodzera kuti ndidzoke ndiri mupenyu, vamwe vachisara, kuti kuzova nechikoro chinonzi chitepo school of ideology, yokufundisa vana vedu kuti hondo yakatanga sei yokufundisa vana vedu kuti chinhu chinonzi uori chakaimira sei mukati menyika yedu. Kuda nyika yako kwakakosha. Pano kubhururuka kumhanya kunoti ambuya ngavatemere masanctions. Vanozivei chembere iri kutambura kudaro. Vamwe vachimhanya kunoti makomuredzi ngavaende kunoisungirira kwavakaitora. Kana vakagona kuendeswa, dai vabvuma kuendeswa zvavo kuchitepo ideology, zvese izvi havambozvitaura. Patriotism inotiudza culture yenyika yedu. Kuda nyika yako zvicherwa nezviri mairi. Mubati wechigaro handina hangu akawanda nokuti ndinonzwa kubatikana nezera randakaenda kuhondo ndichidzoka uchiona mumwe munhu imba ino achioma musoro kuti mutemo ugadzirwe mukati memba ino kuti vana vedu vazoziva ramangwana vari kuberekwa. Hapana zvavari kuziva, asi vakaendeswa kuchikoro vanoziva zvese. Ndaikumbira dai zvaibvira makanzuru ese vari muhurumende, vapi vanozvidanho zvipi, vatange vaenda kuSchool of Ideology vasati vawana basa, votanga vadzidziswa kuda nyika yavo vasade kumhanya koluta. Ndatenda zvangu.
Maitsabasa, Honorable Shongeta. Any further debate? I recognize Honorable G. Hwachoyo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to debate the motion put forward by Honorable Mapiki. Let me pose it from the very onset of my debate, Madam Speaker, that I am vehemently opposed to this motion and the idea of legislating patriotism for the reasons that I'm going to outline. Number one, legislating patriotism can be a tool for abuse of power and suppressing dissent through punishing individuals who express opinions that challenge the status quo or the government of the day. In a competitive authoritarian context such as Zimbabwe, where there is party-state conflation, terms such as national interest are often euphemisms for advancing party interest and interest of the ruling class or ruling elite. In this case, legislating patriotism might be actually legislating the zanification of the state. Number two, Madam Speaker, there is also a danger that legislating patriotism can erode civil liberties and restrict freedoms of speech, assembly, and association. These civil liberties are at the heart of any democratic society and encoded in our own Bill of Rights, in our own Constitution, and must therefore be protected and protected rather than taken away by opaque, divisive, and undemocratic laws under the guise of legislating patriotism. The proposed prayer by the mover of the motion also has a chilling effect on public discourse, Madam Speaker. Open, honest public debate that is so instrumental to democratic development might be discouraged attempts at autarky. Patriotism, Madam Speaker, can also be very subjective. The definition of patriotism can be very subjective. And any attempt to define it risks being arbitrary and unfair, more so in our context. If you are to ask me what patriotism is, Madam Speaker, I will probably tell you what it is not, based on my lived experiences. I will tell you that it is not siphoning of national resources into individual pockets. I will probably tell you, Madam Speaker, that it is not abducting citizens in broad daylight, including parliamentarians, Madam Speaker, and opposition leaders, because they belong to a different political party. Patriotism is not extrajudicial killings of opposition members because they have not voted for your party. It is not weaponizing of the judiciary against political opponents. It is not dismantling of state institutions, including, Madam Speaker, a whole parliament into commissariat departments of one political party. It is not targeting an ethnic group for massive killings under the guise of national interest. It is not plunging the country into chaos through attempts to change the constitution and extend one's term of office. It is not that, Madam Speaker. Patriotism can never be blind. Can never be blindness to flaws in your own country. I will quote Mark Twain, Madam Speaker, and tell you that patriotism is supporting one's country all the time and one's government when it deserves it. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, I wish to reiterate my strong opposition to the motion under debate. Legislating patriotism is a slippery slope, Madam Speaker, that might end up breeding authoritarian consolidation in this our country and suppression of fundamental rights of Zimbabwean citizens. Honorable Speaker, patriotism must be nurtured and never legislated. Focus on government and indeed this very House must be on prioritizing the interests of ordinary citizens through the protection of human rights, provision of potable water, electricity, good hospitals, education, jobs, plugging revenue leaks and ending corruption. And patriotism would develop, Madam Speaker, organically. Seek ye provision of citizens, seek ye provision of services to citizens and protection of their rights, and everything else will be added unto you. I so submit.
We have a debate. Recognize Honorable Komberi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, ma'am. I want to appreciate this opportunity that allows me also to add my contribution on the topic of embracing the ideology of patriotism. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I want to start by defining patriotism in similar terms. Simply put, patriotism can be defined as the deep-rooted love, loyalty, and devotion towards one's country. So the deep-rooted love, loyalty, and devotion, Madam Speaker, are actions. But actions are always and everywhere driven by the mindset. As was said by Mahatma Gandhi, a man is just but a product of his own thoughts, what he thinks he becomes. So embracing the ideology of patriotism is very fundamental for a country such as Zimbabwe. For ideology is teaching the mindset. In this case, for the mindset to think one's country first and put it first before anything else. Madam Speaker, the ideology of patriotism play a pivotal role in shaping societies and nurturing a strong Zimbabwe as a nation. It therefore implies, Madam Speaker, that ideology of patriotism is more than a mere sentiment, but an essential ingredient that binds individuals together and propels collective progress as postulated by Zimbabwe's #1 patriotic citizen, His Excellency Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, in his mantra, nyika inovakwa nevene vayo. That is to say, when it comes to building an economy or a country, a nation is best built by its own patriotic people through crystallization of collective wisdom, but wisdom is derived from a patriotic mindset. Honorable Speaker, ma'am, understanding the importance of patriotism is the beginning of all nation-building wisdom, and hence is crucial for the well-being of and prosperity of an economy such as ours. Allow me at this juncture, Madam Speaker, to elucidate on specific benefits to Zimbabwe that are potentially brought about by embracing the ideology of patriotism. Firstly, Madam Speaker, patriotism fosters unity and social cohesion. Madam Speaker, in a world characterized by diversity, patriotism serves as a unifying force that transcends differences of race, religion, and ethnicity, even differences in the political parties that people are actually under. To this end, patriotism creates a shared sense of identity and purpose among citizens, promoting social harmony and solidarity. Madam Speaker, when the Zimbabwean people are united by a common love for their country, they work together towards common goals, paving the way for a stronger and more cohesive society. Secondly, Madam Speaker, patriotism nurtures national pride and identity. It actually instills a sense of appreciation and reverence for a country's history, culture, and achievements. It is therefore key to note that the ideology of patriotism should be embraced in our country such as Zimbabwe. Honorable Speaker, it must be noted that by valuing and preserving cultural heritage, patriotism helps in maintaining a unique national identity. And to this end, citizens become ambassadors of their nation's values and traditions, and in the process, they promote such values and traditions. Patriotism drives national progress and development. A society that cherishes love for its country encourages innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. Patriotism fosters a sense of collective responsibility towards the well-being of the country, spurring initiatives that enhance infrastructure, education, health, and sustainable development. In a nutshell, Madam Speaker, ideology of patriotism is of paramount importance in fostering a strong nation. It strengthens unity, preserves national pride and identity, encourages civic engagement, and drives progress and development. So by and large, it is key to note that cultivating and nurturing patriotism within individuals is vital for building prosperous, harmonious, and resilient Zimbabwe. Thus, it is through the collective devotion to one's country that nations can strive towards a brighter future for all the citizens, independent of their political associations. With these humble submissions, Madam Speaker, I rest my case and I want to thank you.
Thank you. In further debate, I recognize Honorable Karoi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's Karoi, Madam Speaker. Yeah, for those who are minuting.
Apologies.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for affording me this opportunity, as I want to add my voice on the motion. Madam Speaker, the ideology of patriotism as a state-enforced agency, especially through a national ideological institution as a legal framework, Madam Speaker, making it compulsory is not going to benefit the nation until it is going to be taken seriously without politicizing it. I'm going to focus, Madam Speaker, on the democratic principles, human rights, national unity, and priority and policy priorities. Madam Speaker, patriotism by its nature is a personal and emotional commitment to one's country, not something that can be legislated into human conscience. When the state starts mandating ideology, Madam Speaker, we move dangerously towards authoritarian rule. Compulsory patriotism is not patriotism, it is doctrination. Madam Speaker, we must move away from violation of constitutional and human rights. Our Constitution guarantees freedom of thought, opinion, and expression. To enforce patriotism legally would infringe upon these basic rights, Madam Speaker. Creating a legal framework compelling ideological loyalty undermines democracy and pluralism through thrive on diversity of opinion. Madam Speaker, the dangers of institutionalizing ideology is as follows, Madam Speaker. An ideology institution sounds disturbing. History has shown us, Madam Speaker, that once states begin controlling ideology, state abuse, censorship, and suppression of dissent follows. Decisiveness, Madam Speaker, and the weaponization risk, it is going to be also one of the challenges. This motion risks creating a decisive notion, patriotic versus unpatriotic citizens. Who defines patriotism, Madam Speaker? Who also critique of government policy be labeled unpatriotic? Will opposition voices be silenced under this legal framework, Madam Speaker? Misplaced priorities, Madam Speaker. Zimbabwe is facing economic hardships, high employment, and service delivery. Shouldn't our effort and public resources go into rebuilding education, health, infrastructure, and job creation instead of building ideology enforcement mechanisms? The patriotism is built, not imposed. True patriotism is cultivated through equality education, national dialogue, transparency, and equitable development, Madam Speaker. Focus on teaching national history, promoting civic responsibility, and celebrating our cultural heritage, not enforcing loyalty. Madam Speaker, I have got few recommendations, Madam Speaker. Rather than forcing patriotism through law and state institutions, Madam Speaker, I recommend: 1, strengthen civic education, incorporate balanced, inclusive civic and historical education in schools that encourages love of our country while respecting diverse perspectives. 2, promote national unity through development, Madam Speaker. We must foster patriotism through inclusive development, equal opportunities, and public accountability, Madam Speaker. Few minutes ago, Madam Speaker, we were all contributing and supporting the issue of no to corruption. And this is, Madam Speaker, what we are supposed to focus on, not to focus on the motions which will also create opposition of views, especially in our country. Number 3, we must establish a national dialogue platform, Madam Speaker. We must create voluntary spaces for civic dialogue, youth engagement, and cultural celebrations that build belonging organically. Lastly, Madam Speaker, we must safeguard democratic rights. We must promote media freedom, Madam Speaker. We know very well in our country, we have got so many journalists, Madam Speaker, or so many people who come from media fraternity who always face harassment through opposition of views, Madam Speaker. And I believe that if we focus more on promoting media freedom, Madam Speaker, our country will have development and peace will prevail. We must also focus, Madam Speaker, on academic independence. And I know very well that if we focus on this one, obviously we are going to stop the issue of saying who is going to be at Heroes Acre and who is not going to. And we must also, Madam Speaker, run away from the fact that if anyone is opposing the government, whether you have gone to war or not, especially those who have gone to war, that they are now enemies of the struggle. Because as a nation, if you continue to promote such kind of behaviors, Madam Speaker, we will not go anywhere. Honorable Speaker, let us not confuse patriotism with blind allegiance. Let us not sacrifice freedom on the altar of loyalty. Zimbabwe's greatness will come not from compulsory ideology, but from a shared vision, Madam Speaker, built on justice, opportunity, and mutual respect. I respectfully, Madam Speaker, urge this House to reconsider this motion. And I know very well it is going to be very difficult because it will be more like those from my side are opposing. But the true factor, Madam Speaker, we really want to build this nation. We want this nation to walk in a path where we also invite even developers to come and develop in our country. This motion, Madam Speaker, I strongly feel that it is going to create a lot of noise because we are not correctly explaining or unpacking patriotism as patriotism. We are more like, if you have got any different view, you are fighting the struggle, which is wrong, Madam Speaker. May I close by saying, Madam Speaker, I don't agree in compulsory ideological institution of patriotism because muchishona tinoti chakatanga ndo chakachenjedza. Recently, those councillors who managed to attend the Herbert Chitepo School of the Ideology, their certificates, Madam Speaker, were written ZANU-PF on it, which clearly shows that it was a political ideology, not a national ideology. Madam Speaker, we must agree to disagree. Honestly, if Hebert Chitepo School of Ideology was going to be taken as a national ideology, obviously everyone was going to support it. But the moment, Madam Speaker, those certificates were having the logo for another party, Madam Speaker, everything zvakabva zvapinda musango nekuti people were there to support the Herbert Chitepo. The moment it is when it was politicized, zvakabva zvapinda musango. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let's continue to unite as a nation. Let's continue to also bring even opposition ideas, because it will also help our nation rather than destroying our nation. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, let's avoid repetition. If something has been said, please don't say it again. Any further debate? I recognize Honorable Tukumbu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. And I would like to thank the Honorable Member, Honorable Mapiki, for bringing this motion into this House. And I also want to appreciate all the Honorable Members who have contributed towards this important debate that we have in this House. Be that as it may, Madam Speaker, I feel that this House must engage less in theoretical addressing of the issue of patriotism. Rather, we should be focusing more on being practical about the term patriotism. That's what I believe, Madam Speaker. The whole country must be looking at us and understand what is patriotism by what we do, not by what we say. Out of our way as members of parliament to try and explain the concept of patriotism, because most of the things that we are saying, Madam Speaker, are the things that we don't do or we don't practice. If we want this idea of patriotism to be understood by the entire nation, Madam Speaker, we must start to practice patriotism. I'm happy that when other members were debating about patriotism, Madam Speaker, they also tried to define what patriotism is. Madam Speaker, one of the speakers defined patriotism as as unconditional love to one's own country. And the honorable member had to write, or he had to predicate his entire debate upon that particular definition. That was a very good definition, Madam Speaker, but I would want to say the definition, in as much as it is a good definition, the honorable member didn't define what we call a country.
Order, Honorable Chikumbu. Can you please stick to your debate and your facts and not analyze what has been said before? You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I'm just trying to create a launchpad for my debate, Madam Speaker. But so that's why I didn't mention the name of honorable member who said what I'm referring to, so that it doesn't seem like I'm responding to that particular honorable member. But I heard what you said. But my point, Madam Speaker, is that if we define patriotism as unconditional love to one's country, we must also be able to define what we call a country. If we define patriotism, Madam Speaker, as unconditional love to one's country, we must also be able to define what we call unconditional love, Madam Speaker. So let me get into the definition of what we call a country, Madam Speaker. A country, Madam Speaker, is simply its people, Madam Speaker. Unconditional love, Madam Speaker, in as far as patriotism is concerned, Madam Speaker, is to love your own people. That's what I call patriotism. So I'll predicate my entire debate on these two definitions that I've given lastly, Madam Speaker, to say what is a country, what is to love one's country unconditionally. A country, Madam Speaker, is not the borderlines that we see every day. A country, Madam Speaker, is just an abstract means that we try to understand what we call a nation. It's just for me, it's an abstract. But what a country is, Madam Speaker, is the people that reside in that country, Madam Speaker. It is the cultures, Madam Speaker, of those people who reside in that particular geographical area, Madam Speaker. It is
the values that are upheld by the people who stay in that particular piece of a geographical location, Madam Speaker, or area that we call a country. So if you talk of patriotism, Madam Speaker, we should not talk or discuss about patriotism as if it's a distant thing that we are talking about. Patriotism must bring back or point us back to the citizens of that particular nation. If we talk of unconditional love, Madam Speaker, for one country, I would want to say, Madam Speaker, in this entire universe, in this entire planet, there is no way a human being can love unconditionally, Madam Speaker. There's no way. Madam Speaker, this point I'm trying to make here is that patriotism is a two-way thing, Madam Speaker. The way we treat our citizens.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker.
What's the point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I want to correct my colleague about the definition of population. Yes, let me put it very straight. We cannot be misled by a wrong definition. Yes. So, may you allow me to put the correct definition of a country?
You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, ma'am, a country is a distinct territory which is a distinct territory with defined borders, a permanent population, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other countries. That's the definition of a country. I so submit.
Thank you. Honorable Chikumbo, you may proceed with your debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to disappoint the honorable member. I'm not going to take his definition. We have got so many distinct territories, but they are not called countries. He must know that. But I'm not going to entertain him. Let me continue with my debate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, like what I was saying, Madam Speaker, there's no way human beings on this planet can love unconditionally. There is always a causation for one to love. For example, if we say one has to love his country unconditionally, the condition that's there for one to love that country is that because it is his country or a country. That's the condition. So, when we are talking of patriotism, Madam Speaker, it is a two-way thing. It is a two-way relationship, Madam Speaker. It is how the state treats its citizens. And then it is also about how the citizens respond to that treatment from their country or their government. But what is a government, Madam Speaker? It's just other citizens acting on behalf of other citizens. That's why it is very, very important for us now when we are discussing about this issue of patriotism. We must not forget about the state actors themselves, what they do in terms of contributing to the ideology of patriotism, Madam Speaker. So, with this, Madam Speaker, let me get into my debate by then trying to define what we call, the key elements that we must focus on when we discuss or when we debate about patriotism. Number one, Madam Speaker, true patriotism, Madam Speaker, is loyalty to the people, not loyalty to party or individuals. This is a very important aspect, Madam Speaker. If you listen to many debates that were flying in here, Madam Speaker, you could tell that we are trying to be partisan with how we are debating this matter, Madam Speaker. Let me also hasten to say, Madam Speaker, it is wrong for us to launch debate on patriotism by thinking that there is a certain group that monopolizes patriotism, Madam Speaker. There is no one in this house who can claim to monopolize this important ideology, this important animal called patriotism, Madam Speaker. So the moment we start to think that there's a certain group, there's a certain organization, there's a certain political party that monopolize patriotism, then we have a problem, Madam Speaker. Patriotism must be regarded as something that should be desired from every citizen of this country, full stop. We don't discuss patriotism, Madam Speaker, to appease our political leaders from our political parties or to use patriotism topic as a way of bootlicking certain leaders so that we get certain benefits. We cannot do that, Madam Speaker. Number two, Madam Speaker.
Point of order.
Order, Honorable Chikumu. What's your point of order, Honorable Hiwayo?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to get clarity because he seems to be lecturing. He says, we, who is? I wanted to hear the
Order, Honorable Tobayo and Honorable Mangwa.
I wanted to hear whether the we represent this parliament or what, because I think he must debate on his own behalf and maybe on behalf of his constituents, not the parliament. Thank you.
Honorable Chikumu, stand guided. This is your debate, so you should refer it to yourself. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll try to not refer to continue saying we like what the honorable member is asking, but I'm also referring to my colleague who is seated next to me. So let me continue, Madam Speaker. Point number two, patriotism, true patriotism, Madam Speaker, requires accountability, not blind allegiances, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are some moments where I sit here with pain hearing some other honorable members sanitizing unspeakable things that are being done by certain officials here. They'll be clapping hands, Madam Speaker. After that, Madam Speaker, those same individuals will stand up here and say they are patriotic. That's not it, Madam Speaker. When we say, Madam Speaker, we are patriotic citizens, Madam Speaker, we must demand our accountability. We must push for accountability, Madam Speaker. And we should also be accountable ourselves, Madam Speaker. That's what patriotism is all about. Madam Speaker, I expect in this House, if we are discussing issues that have got something to do with the welfare of the people or the citizens of this country, I would expect all of us, Madam Speaker, to unite and speak with one voice. But more often, Madam Speaker, it's not the case. We are always debating according to party lines. And after that, we raise and say we are patriots, Madam Speaker. I've heard many other MPs, Madam Speaker, who have been victimized for saying things that are actually affecting the people that they are leading. But they would have said things that are out of line in terms of what their party believes or stands for. We've had many people, Madam Speaker, in this House who have been victimized. But they would be standing up for the citizens that brought them into this House. So true patriotism, Madam Speaker, is about accountability. It's very, very important. Point number three, Madam Speaker, patriotism builds, it doesn't divide. Madam Speaker, at this juncture, as a nation, we are seriously divided. And the people who are at the forefront of dividing the entire nation are the same people who are rising and say we are true patriots. It worries me, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. If we are for true patriotism, Madam Speaker, we must do all that we can to make sure that the entire country is united. As long as the people who are at the forefront of pushing divisions in this country are the ones who are then crying loud to say patriotism, Madam Speaker, we are going to have a problem. It will remain a milestone, a dream that we will never achieve as a nation, Madam Speaker. So with patriotism, Madam Speaker, we must be united. I've seen that in this House, you know, sometimes it's difficult for us to relate. I like what was once said by the government chief people. He said, when you are in here, we are friends. But when you are out there, we want to portray a picture that we are enemies. But when you are in here, we share a lot of things, regardless of whether you are from the opposite or from Zambia. But the moment you go out there, Madam Speaker, we start to divide the people. That's why I said in the introduction of my debate, Madam Speaker, that Parliament must demonstrate patriotism. Parliament must not talk about patriotism. Point number 4, Madam Speaker. Patriotism, Madam Speaker, should be shown through service, not slogans, Madam Speaker. I feel that there is a lot of serious confusion, especially for my other colleagues. I'm not going to mention their names, who always mistaken political slogans for patriotism, Madam Speaker. It's not like that.
Order. You are left with 5 minutes.
Okay, Madam Speaker. So let me be quick. Madam Speaker, with patriotism, we should never think that our slogans should define patriotism. Patriotism, like I said, Madam Speaker, must be real. Number 3, Madam Speaker, patriotism upholds the Constitution and the rule of law. That's what patriotism should do. Madam Speaker, in this country, Madam Speaker, we have had a situation whereby there are people who are currently driving to push for unconstitutional acts. After that, they'll come here and tell us that they are patriotic. It's not supposed to be like that, Madam Speaker. Patriots must push for the rule of law and the upholding of our Constitution, Madam Speaker. Point number 6, Madam Speaker, patriotism must think about the future generations. Madam Speaker, the corruption that is happening in this country, Madam Speaker, is unspeakable. We have stolen the entire future for the next generation, Madam Speaker. And the same people are doing this after looting, after stealing from the future generation. They will stand up and say we are patriotic. We must be able, Madam Speaker, to say as a nation that is wrong. We must condemn that. Lastly, Madam Speaker, patriotism rejects political victimization, Madam Speaker. In this country, Madam Speaker, on 3 or 4 occasions, we have had people being killed for political differences, Madam Speaker. And the people who perform those killings, they will stand up and say we are patriotic. We have had massacres in Matabeleland. 2008, Madam Speaker, I've had people, being killed. Madam Speaker, 31 August 2018, people were killed.
Order, Honorable Chikumbu. That has been said already by the previous speaker. That has been said already.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, so if you have a new point, you can raise it. This one has been said already.
Madam Speaker, that what I'm saying has been said already. It's a sign, Madam Speaker, that this is a very important issue.
But you can't repeat what has been said by another speaker.
I'm not going to repeat. Madam Speaker. But what I'm going to say, Madam Speaker, as I close, Madam Speaker, we should not have a problem as a nation, Madam Speaker, when it comes to patriotism, Madam Speaker, to be protagonist, Madam Speaker, in rhetoric and be antagonist, Madam Speaker, in practice. If we are to be patriotic, Madam Speaker, we must act like patriots. We must do like real patriots. Madam Speaker, we should not be talking about patriotism.
Point of order.
We should be.
Honorable Chikumbu, what's your point of order, Honorable Manager?
Maita basa mbato echigaro. Avo honorable member vanoratidza kuti vari kunyatsoziva pane corruption nepairi kuitwa. Saka hatingauye mudare runo totaura dare renyika yese kuti vane corruption yakanyanya iri kuitwa munyika muno vachiziva pairi. Ngavanyore voendesa kune vezvemutemo kuti vanhu vari kuita corruption vasungwe, kwete kutaura kuti munyika muno mune corruption yakanyanya. Ivo vachiziva. Izvo zvega izvozvo zvinosvibisa nyika kana zvitaura zvakadaro mudare muno. Ngavanyore kutoshaya patriotism ikoko kwavari kutoita ikoko kutaura zvakadaro. Mazviita mubato wechigaro.
Ndazvinzwa. Honorable Chikumbu, you may round up.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I wind up, Madam Speaker, let me be quick to say, to criticize or point at the bad things that are happening, that are being done by the state agents of your country, it is not in any way being unpatriotic, Madam Speaker. That's the highest form of being patriotic, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if a mother or a father loves their children, there's a moment where they will have to beat them, Madam Speaker, so that they don't do bad things. There's a moment, Madam Speaker, where they're supposed to criticize them, Madam Speaker. It doesn't mean that they don't love their country. So if we love our country, Madam Speaker,
unlike my other honorable member, we must stand up for the things that are right. We must all condemn the things that are wrong despite of our political affiliations, Madam Speaker. We must condemn everything that is not right, everything that is derailing our country, Madam Speaker. We must condemn it, Madam Speaker, without fear or favor. That's what we are doing. And what we are hearing, Madam Speaker, is coming from the heart of a true patriot. So I submit, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate? I recognize Honorable Malinganiso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I rise with trepidation remembering the words of the son of the soil, President Nelson Mandela of South Africa. May his soul rest in peace. Madam Speaker, President Nelson Mandela said, our deepest fear is not inadequacy, but the power we wield beyond measure. To the extent of asking ourselves, who am I to be talented, brilliant, gorgeous, when the actual question should be, who am I not to be? Madam Speaker, I rise with trepidation because there is failure in us. There's a misconception, deep misconceptions amongst us, where people rise and present lengthy speeches without understanding the prayer before the house. As a result, Madam Speaker, fellow honorable members are shooting in the dark. And when you shoot in the dark, there's always a chance that you might shoot even your child. Madam Speaker, it is not so wrong to seek to legislate patriotism, because this has happened in the past in the United States of America, where fellow honorable members who are debating here, lampooning the fact that such a legislation is proposed, sort of get even their sponsorship. It sort of pains my heart, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I grew up in a rural setting where we had in Keto. In Shona, Madam Speaker, hakuna muchero kana unowira kure na mai wavo.
Honorable Gladys Chwachoyo, no one disturbed you when you were debating. Can you please respect other members and let them to be heard in silence? You may proceed, Honorable Malinganis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Robert Elliot said, and I quote, and he is an Australian, to be exact, if you only visit 2 continents in your life, visit Africa twice. I repeat, if you only visit 2 continents in your life, visit Africa twice. Because there's beauty, Madam Speaker, about Africa, in which Zimbabwe is a part that you don't get elsewhere. Sometimes it is so painful that maybe because of our circumstances, we might fail to travel the world, to learn of circumstances elsewhere, and because of good advertisements, Madam Speaker, ma'am, and patriotism, especially on the part of America, those that have never been there will glorify it. But those that happen to be there know for certain that in certain aspects, a lot of them, we are actually better. But the good thing about America is they know well to advertise their nation. And here, we know well to say Zimbabwe is full of corruption, which we cannot prove. And Madam Speaker, that is wrong marketing altogether. That is lack of patriotism. Without fear or favor, that's lack of patriotism. Madam Speaker, the prayer before the House is to enact is to enact the ideology.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Order, Honorable Malinganiso. What's the point of order, Honorable Amason?
Andisunato nzwisisa kuti Honorable Malinganiso pari kuti vanhu vakati munyika muno mune corruption haisi patriotism. Tikanzwikwa panzapo Honorable Speaker hatipabudi tichinzi imi muri kutoti hatifaniri kuti kune corruption haichisiri patriotism. Mashoko akadaro makadeva mawithdraw nekuti paitwa Karoi report kutaura zvecorruption. Tonzi tikati mune corruption zonzi haisi patriotism. Vanyanya ipapo Honorable Malinganiso.
Honorable Amauswa, ndinokukurudzirai kuti munyatsokuteerera zviri kuda kutaurwa naHonorable Malinganiso. Munenge musina kunyatsokubata zvavari kutaura. Honorable Malinganiso, you may proceed.
It is so, Madam Speaker, ma'am, when one hastily climbs without stopping, they normally fall. And normally they say the wrong things. Madam Speaker, if I should live twice, my choice in the next life would be to be a Zimbabwean. A proud Zimbabwean. I say it again. Madam Speaker, majority of our debaters have sought to define patriotism, and I agree with their definitions. But Madam Speaker, it is true that patriotism borrows from the heart, and that we are fruits to a certain tree, which is our motherland, Zimbabwe, to whom we owe loyalty, because all that we are, including the force ingenuity, we somewhat break off, the opportunities to be heard, regardless of whether we are on point or not, the right to dissent, and of course, the right to be lost in more ways than one. The only pride we can pay, or price, sorry, the only price we can pay is love here with action, and reward here by purposeful direction. Ours must be to nourish her, that she keeps feeding us. Ours is to look after her, that she may continue to bless us. Now we do not reward her by adulterating her spirituality, deep diversity, and her history to the satisfaction of foreign gods. Madam Speaker, the Holy Book rightly says, kudza baba namai vako kuti mazuva ako agowanda panyika, kana kuti agowedzerwa. Our spiritual and traditional roots are inseparable with our history. One, I believe, fellow honorable members have aptly chronicled. Madam Speaker, from that history, we get direction, and we must waver not. And why do I say so, Madam Speaker? I've heard some suggesting that the money being paid to all veterans is meager. Madam Speaker, understanding our history positions us rightly to understand also our circumstances, to understand also our role. What is it that we must do to attain the Zimbabwe that we want? There are two choices, Madam Speaker. One is of John the Baptist, where you go into the agora and shout, "You Herod, etc." Madam Speaker, normally the price is death, because someday one will dance and they demand a price, which is your head. Then, Madam Speaker, the second is of Nathan the prophet, where if a wrong has been committed, he goes to King David and says, "King David, there is such a one in your country who has taken from one who does not have." And King David would say, who is that person? Bring them to me so that I may deal with them. And Nathan says, "It's you." I'm saying there are two ways of attaining a conclusion. Madam Speaker, if indeed, as I've heard from honorable members from the other side, that what they are against is not the ideology of patriotism, but that they want it as a national something that is not from a certain party as they've alluded to. Madam Speaker, what I would have thought is that one would have posited a solution that let's sit down. What is it that we need in the curriculum? So we co-create our future. We co-create a future of Zimbabweans that speak from one voice. Not because they seek political scores, but because we seek progress. Madam Speaker, whilst Moses was on Mount Sinai in the wilderness, the Israelites, he had liberated via divine intervention, so it fit to construct a God of their own. Maybe, Madam Speaker, that was the genesis of misguided democracy. Upon descending, Madam Speaker, God used Moses to pronounce punishment and plagues on the people he had chosen in the wilderness. Madam Speaker, now this is a story we may all be conversant with, but what lessons for patriotism do we draw from such a story? Madam Speaker, there is no freedom outside of the law. You cannot be free outside of the law. And how do we attain patriotism if we do not have the confines within which it is defined? That begs an answer. Madam Speaker, the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act as amended criminalizes willfully injuring the sovereignty and the national interest of Zimbabwe. And the national interests of Zimbabwe are housed in the Constitution. So for one to say legislating patriotism is wrong, when the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, has such, I think we will be lost. Madam Speaker, to sway aside misguided conceptions that such a law is misplaced, what do those of that persuasion say, not only of the Bible, but of the American Constitution? Because they are your bearers. Madam Speaker, the Israelites did not stop in the wilderness. In the times of Amos, in the times of Prophet Elijah, in the times of Prophet Hosea, the Israelites, Madam Speaker, conjured uprisings. Yet they all were met with one end, punishment. Madam Speaker, whilst Prophet Hosea was called to live a symbolic life signifying religious apostasy, and whereas Prophet Elijah slaughtered the malcontents at Mount Carmel, it is Amos 2, verse 6 that stands out for me, where he says, "Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Israel and for 4, I will not revoke the punishment." Madam Speaker, the Holy Book has demonstrated times without number that stepping out of the way is punishable, not only punishable, but actually punishable by death. Madam Speaker, did they not murder Jesus Christ, saying he is not the Messiah? Is there not a chance that today's Pharisees may still see themselves as present-day Messiahs? Madam Speaker, laws must be strengthened as is consistent not only with the Holy Book, but our unique circumstances as it is in America. those found in the wrong side of the law, particularly seeking to undermine the gains of the revolution, must face the wrath of the law. Madam Speaker, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego also has lessons from which we must draw.
Order. Honorable Malinganiso, you're left with 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When Jesus got to Galilee, Madam Speaker, Legion shouted, "No, no, son of man." I see it happening also here. Madam Speaker, no, okay. Madam Speaker, if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego could endure the heat of a consuming fire to remain in the right, why should we not understand that a revolution is not an event, but a process in which we are warriors of economic struggle, winning which we will liberate future generations of the hooks of neo-colonialism and neoliberalism. Madam Speaker, His Excellency rightly says a country is best built by its own. Who among us have ever built a home of which they are not fond of? That said, Madam Speaker, I know majority of my brothers here and outside will agree more that sometimes persistence turns even hearts. That, of course, is true of those of us that are in heterosexual relationships. Madam Speaker, a love affair takes convincing and initiative. I am therefore submitting to us that the National Youth Service and the Digital School of Ideology must
the Madam Speaker, ma'am. Let me take this opportunity to add my voice on this very important motion raised by Honorable Mapiki and seconded by Honorable Mtimba Nyonka. I've been also reflecting on an individual, Madam Speaker, who is not patriotic. And I perceive that individual as someone who is danger to his or her own society. Let me justify my claim, Madam Speaker, because this is the individual who can lament for sanctions against his or her own people. This is an individual who can go to the global north and talk of abuse of human rights as if the global north have the templates of human rights. So this is how dangerous this person is in the society. Madam Speaker, the colonization of our minds has been the cause of all this. This is where we are today because of white supremacy. We've been taught at different levels that our colonizers are superior than us. So our mental capacities today, we always regard our colonial masters as more superior than us. That is why we go there and start to report the claims that I've just mentioned. I've been mentioned personal. Madam Speaker, we have numerous examples. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, say we have numerous examples where Africa is regarded as a black continent. If any transactions are done among Africans, it is called black market. It's unofficial and unprofessional. All those derogatory names are given to our food, to our attire, to our songs, to the extent that we value the Western culture than our own culture. So it is true, Mr. Speaker said that the way we've been taught from the early childhood to universities, our mental capacities have been taught the way we are reflecting today. So we have numerous impacts on this colonization that I'm talking about. Even at any negotiation forum, we negotiate as inferior because of that inferiority complex that have been instilled in our minds. Instead of having a give and take situation, we always be junior partners in all the deals. Whenever we face any challenge, we believe all those problems should be solved by other people other than us. We believe in violence. We believe in yes.
Point of order, Mr.
Turbulence,
Speaker. Point of order, Mr.
in
Speaker.
disturbance, because
Order, Honorable Makope. Yes, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I think recently there was a ruling by the Madam Speaker, who said that when we are debating, we must not refer to as we. So I would also want the honorable member to withdraw that, because he cannot make us to be part of whatever he's talking about, especially of his violence. We are not violent. He is violent.
Order, honorable members. Honorable Makope, I believe the previous speaker they directed that we avoid using the we phrase in the debate. So you may carry on with that guidance. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for that guidance. I've been talking of the symptoms or the impacts of this neo-colonialism. As people have been made to understand or to believe that local donors are not donors, but those who come from abroad, especially the global north, are the true donors who can support their communities. It is something that has been instilled in our minds. Recently, Honorable Togarepi has been talking of the local well-wishers who are assisting our communities. But derogatory names are given to such important people It is because our minds have been taught that local donors are not important. Rather, we respect those who come from abroad and support us. Even Mr. Speaker, say, even if we look at, I've been looking at the issue of the market of our own products, the African products, being Zimbabwean products, which come from our own innovations that are not being supported abroad because they come from the dark continent. So basically, Mr. Speaker, say I'm just reinforcing the idea that education that we have received from early childhood to tertiary institution is the one that make an individual whom we see today. So, as a resolution, my prayer, Mr. Speaker, I think that same education can also be used as a route to correct all those anomalies. The Chitepo School of Ideology that has been talked about is a way to go. To me, if all those partners or other stakeholders who feel they can have new ideas that can be put in the syllabus or in the curriculum, they should come abroad and present their ideas. We used to have the National Youth Service, Mr. Speaker said. It has been implemented in countries such as Cuba, Libya, and those people are proud with their own products. They are proud with their own nation. So this is where we should also go as a nation. All our institutions, we should have the flavor of our own history, our own challenges, and our own solutions. That is what I believe, personally. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by reinforcing the issue that patriotism can build someone who is more patriotic. Someone who is more patriotic can solve his or her own problem wrong. Someone who can come on board with new ideas. Someone who can come on board and support and anchor the institutions of authorities of his or her own country. That is someone who is very patriotic and progressive women development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Makope. Next to take the floor, yes, Honorable Deputy Government Chief Whip.
I move that the debate be now adjourned.
Who seconds?
I second, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who are of that opinion will say aye.
Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the debate is adjourned. Toward that, government chief
Tomorrow,
whip.
Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that we revert back to order number 10 of today's order.
Who seconds?
I second, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Right. It is a notice of motion number 10, Honorable Wende.
Motion number 10, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Who seconds?
A second.
Oh, thank you. I'll call upon Honorable Wende to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to present the Public Accounts Committee report on Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe CAS on the issues raised in the Auditor General's report on state-owned enterprises and parastatals for the financial year ended 31st December 2020. I will go straight to the objectives of the inquiry, Honorable Speaker. The key objectives of the inquiry were, one, to scrutinize issues that were raised by the Auditor General in the Auditor General's report, assess challenges faced by CAS, and proffer recommendations to address the issues that were identified. The committee conducted an oral evidence session with CAS officials to assess progress on implementing the Auditor General's recommendation. I now move on to committee findings. The first one being on management of cash and bank balances. And the issue being that the committee noted that the observation by the Auditor General that the authorities' control over management of cash and bank balances were not
Order, Honorable Wende. So, Deputy Government Chief Whip, could you please approach the chair? You may proceed.
Honorable Speaker, as a result, there were a number of unreconciled items at the end of the year, some dating back to 2016, which had not been resolved. And the response that we received from CAS was that the officials submitted that the bank reconciliations were now being done on a monthly basis, and any reconciling items were being investigated and cleared as they arise. The committee observed and noted with concern that CAS failed to institute a monthly bank reconciliation without valid reasons during the period under review. And the committee is recommending that reconciliations for the period under review should be completed and submitted to the committee within 60 days of this report being tabled in Parliament. CAS should also submit evidence that monthly reconciliations are now being conducted within 60 days of tabling this report. The going concern challenges. The committee noted that the due long-term legacy loans amounting to $18.59 billion and domestic loans amounting to Zimbabwean $111 million during the year ended 31st December 2020. In addition, the authority's current liabilities exceeded its current assets by 18.29 billion Zimbabwean dollars as of December 31, 2020. These conditions indicate the existence of a material uncertainty that may cast significant doubt on the authority's ability to continue as a going concern. And the response that we got from CAS was that the authority inherited the legacy loan in 1999. CAS Zimbabwe the legacy loans amounting to $75 million from China Exim Bank, loans amounting to 28 million were all transferred to the Airport Company of Zimbabwe on August 1, 2021. The assets financed by the loans were also transferred to Airport Company of Zimbabwe at the same time. Officials about 18 billion Zimbabwean dollars as of December 2020. They explained that the authorities still faced a going concern challenge due to legacy loans that were transferred to the Airport Company of Zimbabwe. Efforts were being made to transfer back loans amounting to $48 million to the government, which, if successful, will address the going concern issue. The committee observed that and noted with concern that the failure to transfer both assets and liabilities cast aspersions on the financial and accounting acumen of the CAS accounting officer. The committee observed that the liabilities were weighing heavily on the authority, as evidenced by the current liabilities exceeding current assets by 18 billion Zimbabwean dollars as of December 2020. This threatens its overall financial stability and sustainability. And the committee is recommending that the authority should engage their parent ministry to get assistance in transferring the legacy loans to the Airport Company of Zimbabwe by July 30, 2025. The Ministry of Finance, we are also recommending, Honorable Speaker, that the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion should consider taking over the legacy debt to alleviate the financial burden on CAS and ensure its long-term sustainability. And now move on to non-compliance with the accounting standards. The committee noted that the observation by the Auditor General that the prior year financial statement did not comply with the requirements of IAS 21, which deals with the effect of changes in foreign exchange rates, as the authority had been unable to use appropriate exchange rate on the change of fractional currency. The authority translated its comparative financial statements using interbank rate, which came into existence on 22 February 2019 through the Exchange Directive RIU 28 of 2019 issued by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And the response which we got from CAS was that they apprised the committee that the authority resolved to comply with the laws of the country, even if they were at variance with the requirements of international accounting standards. The committee observed and noted with concern that the issue of non-compliance with accounting standards was being experienced by many government departments due to statutory instrument SI 33 of 2019, which mandated the valuation of RTGS assets to USD on a one-to-one basis, and this created significant discrepancies and challenges in financial reporting and compliance. The committee recommendations, Honorable Speaker. We are recommending that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe should take into consideration international standards when drafting statutory instruments to ensure that financial reporting is aligned with internationally accepted practices, thereby enhancing accuracy and consistency in financial statements across all the sectors. I now move on to progress on governance issues. The authority made progress in addressing audit findings by the Auditor General in the 2020 annual report. Two findings on the board and the key management were raised and addressed, as the board was appointed in 2020 and the Director General was also then appointed in 2021. The response which we got from CAS was that the board chair, Ms. Nue, submitted that there were no gaps in the board of CAS, and the current board was focused on addressing the governance issues that the authority faced in the past. She submitted that the board was confident that all governance deficiencies, particularly the lagging behind in the audited financial statements and the related annual general meeting, would be addressed by June 30, 2025. The board has the following committees in place: the strategic and technical, the human resources, the financial audit committee, the audit committee, and integrity and risk committee. The committee was further informed that CAS Substantive Director General was on leave pending retirement.
the authority had completed a shortlisting process for the Director General, and the process was at security clearance stage. On committee observations, Honorable Speaker, the committee noted with concern that while the current board claims to be working to address governance issues that the authority faced in the past, there remains a significant deficiencies, particularly the delays in finalizing audited statements and holding related AGM. Taking cognizance that the board and committees were filled, the committee noted that there was need to ensure that board and committees were in place at all times. The committee noted with concern that the substantive Director General was on leave pending retirement. This situation may temporarily pose threats to good corporate governance and might negatively influence the direction to be taken by the authority. And we are recommending, Honorable Speaker, that the board should adhere to Public Entities Corporate Governance Act, Chapter 10, subsection 31, which provides a framework for the governance of public entities by July 30, 2025. The authority should ensure that the board is fully constituted at all times by filling vacant positions whenever they arise, and that the authorities should expedite the recruitment and security clearance process for the shortlisted candidate by July 30, 2025. On the status, on the submission of financial statements for auditing, the committee noted that CAS did not meet the statutory deadlines for submitting financial statements. And their response was that the 2021 financial statements were submitted, audited, and finalized by the Auditor General. The 22 financial statements were submitted, audited by the Auditor General, but finalizations awaited a closing meeting with management. The 2023 draft financial statements will be submitted to the Auditor General by March 31st, 2025, and finalized by June 30, 2025. The committee observed that CAS did not meet the statutory deadline of 28 February for submitting financial statements for auditing. As stipulated in the Public Finance Management Act, public entities are required to submit their financial statements for auditing within 2 months after the end of the financial year, that is by February 28 of the following year. The committee noted that failure to meet the deadline is a violation of the Public Finance Management Act and a serious breach of the financial discipline and governance of the authority. Your committee is recommending, Honorable Speaker, that the authority should comply with the Public Finance Management Act, Chapter 22, in the submission of financial statements for auditing for the year ending December 31st, 2024, and should submit proof of submission within 30 days of tabling of this report to Parliament. The accounting officer for CAS should be liable for disciplinary processes, offenses, and penalties for failure to submit financial statements for auditing as prescribed in Section 87 and 91 of the Public Finance Management Act. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, the analysis of the Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe CAS audited financial statements reviewed significant governance gaps, non-servicing of legacy loans, going concern challenges, and financial management issues. The committee acknowledged some of the CAS positive steps, such as addressing governance deficiencies, instituting monthly bank reconciliation, and streamlining financial reporting. However, the committee emphasized the need for continuous improvement and vigilance in governance and financial management to achieve long-term sustainability. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wende. The question before the House is a motion by Honorable Wende that this House considers and adopts the report of the Public Accounts Committee on the Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe, CAS, on issues raised in the Auditor General's report on state-owned enterprises and parastatals for the financial year ended 31st December 2020. Is there any debate? I call upon Honorable Wende to...
I now move that debate be adjourned.
Adjourned or adopted?
No, adjourned.
Adjourned. Okay. Thank you, Honorable Wende. Sorry? Oh yes, who second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the debate is adjourned. To what date, Honorable Wende?
Tomorrow, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Wende. I recognize the Deputy Government Chief Whip.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker.
Good evening,
I
Madam.
move that the House be now adjourned.
Who seconds?
I second, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. It has been moved that the House do now adjourn. Is there any debate? I put the question that the House do now adjourn. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the House is adjourned. To what date, Honorable Government Chief Whip?
Tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
The House is adjourned. Thank you.